Chapter 890, The Barren Lands of Divine Essence. Sinful Galaxy. It was an abandoned cultivation planet. More accurately speaking, this was not a complete cultivation planet. Instead, it had turned into a fragment after it had crumbled an unknown number of years ago. Perhaps this fragment had been formed 10,000 years ago, or perhaps it had been formed during a war between the four great true worlds and the fifth true world, which was even older. It was larger than a normal meteor, and perhaps after some time, it would disintegrate in the galaxy and become a part of the meteor that drifted alone in the galaxy. But at that moment, it was not one. Su Ming sat on the fragment of the planet that had crumbled an unknown number of years ago. There were no signs of life in this place, and neither were there any cultivators. It was like a broken world, and all manner of things had died. Su Ming had been meditating in this place for 3 days. He knew how precious time was. He knew that with the four great true worlds hunting him down and the greed of the cultivators in the barren lands, there was a possibility that he would be discovered at any moment. That was why every single time he healed himself, he would only stay there for 3 days at most before he would immediately move to another spot. Su Ming opened his eyes after a moment. There was a hint of fatigue in his eyes. He lowered his head and untied his robes. He looked at the sword mark on his chest, which had become slightly fainter. In silence, he averted his gaze and lifted his head to look at the sky. 100 world stones, huh? Su Ming smiled coldly. There were 2 corpses before him, and both of them were as dry as skeletons. They were the 2 cultivators Su Ming had met 3 days ago. He had originally intended to leave and avoid them, but the 2 cultivators had discovered his identity and chosen to receive the reward. That was why one of them had come forth to fight against him, and the other had swiftly retreated in an attempt to ask for help. Su Ming stood up, lifted his right hand, and swung it forward. Immediately, the 2 corpses turned into ashes and disappeared. Su Ming took a step towards the sky. When he was in midair, red light shone, and red threads surrounded his entire body. Once they turned into a red coffin, he charged into the galaxy with a whoosh. Almost at the instant Su Ming left the broken fragment and flew into the galaxy, a glint suddenly appeared in his eyes while he was in the coffin. This time it's been 5 days. Su Ming sensed that the wisp of presence he had left behind on a meteor 5 days ago had disappeared. This meant that the meteor had been destroyed, and it also meant that someone had arrived on that meteor in search of him. Something's not right. In the past, I've only been discovered after 7 days. Su Ming frowned. Duke of Crimson Flame, do you still have the secret art you cast on me? Su Ming asked in his heart. It's still there. As long as the other party isn't too close to you, it'll be difficult for them to detect your location immediately. Your aura will be retained for 7 days, which means that when they detect your location, they'll be looking at the position you were in 7 days ago. This is a secret art that is similar to distorting time and space. If it were anyone else, even if I were to help them execute it, there would not be much of an effect, but you are an abyss builder, and your inborn talent lies in time and space, which is why you have such power, the Duke of Crimson Flame said calmly. Su Ming was silent. As he thought about it, he placed the matter in his heart. The red coffin charged through the galaxy and disappeared without a trace. 3 days later, the coffin that was charging through the galaxy suddenly came to a halt, and a freezing glare shone in Su Ming's eyes. As expected, something is wrong. The aura I left on the fragment has disappeared. It's only been 3 days. Su Ming's expression turned dark. The coffin immediately melted, and he walked out of it. He stood in the galaxy and looked in the direction where the fragment had been 3 days ago. His eyes sparkled. Besides the blood identification pearl, they should have other methods to locate me. The secret art they used previously was successful, which means that they haven't used this new method to locate me. Right now, the time is rapidly decreasing. Before long, they might be able to avoid the distortion of time and space for 7 days and locate me immediately. A freezing glare appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He knew that if he was constantly being targeted, then he would forever be chased down. I'm also a little curious. The secret art hasn't lost its effect. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have gone wrong. So why can they shorten the time needed to distort time and space? The Duke of Crimson Flame's puzzled voice echoed in Su Ming's ears. How far away are we from Black Ink Planet? Su Ming asked languidly after remaining silent for a moment. Besides healing his injuries, he had been rushing forward, and his goal was to head to Black Ink Planet. Only by leaving that place and stepping into Divine Essence Star Ocean would he be able to break free of the four great true worlds' encirclement and no longer be chased down endlessly. I can still shift you twice, but only twice. I will need to wait for 100 years before I can gather together enough power to shift you once more. But even if I shift, there's still a limit to how far I can go. It'll be difficult for me to reach Black Ink Planet within a short period of time. Based on my calculations, once I shift twice, you'll still need to fly for 70-something years before you can reach your planet, the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. Su Ming frowned and swept his gaze across the area. I have to find what other method they used besides the blood identification pearl to locate me. At that moment, there were 9 ancient bronze swords charging through the galaxy some distance away from where Su Ming was. There was an illusory projection at the tip of these 9 ancient swords. There was a blood-red circle in the projection, and it looked like a rune. If this rune was magnified several times, then they would be able to see clearly that the lines that formed the circular rune were formed by an endless amount of runic symbols densely packed together. The circular rune would flash once every 7 breaths. Every single time it flashed, a large amount of white dots would appear on it. These white dots would either be scattered or gathered together in various spots within the rune. Besides the white dots, there was also a crimson red light that was incredibly eye-catching. That light had been moving swiftly just moments ago, but at that moment, it had stopped moving. Humph! To kill this person, the 4 great true worlds have decided to activate the great divinity incarceration rune together. All those who are in this rune will have nowhere to hide. But this Mo Su is pretty good. He's skilled in runes that can distort time and space. He made us always arrive 7 days late while we chased after him for the past few months. If we didn't activate the great divinity incarceration rune, it would have been rather difficult for us to find out where he is. There were a large number of true guards standing on the 9 swords, and their gazes fell on the red on the illusory projection. With just one more day, we'll be able to break the spell that distorts time and space. At that time, this Mo Su will have nowhere to hide. Judging by the direction he's heading, he should be heading to Black Ink Planet, but Black Ink Planet is incredibly far away from here. He'll need 200 years to get there, and he won't be able to live for 200 years. As the true guards sent their thoughts to each other, the 9 ancient bronze swords sliced through the air and charged into the distance. Just what method did he use? A long arc charge through the galaxy. It was the blood-red coffin, and Su Ming was sitting cross-legged on it. His expression was dark, and a myriad of thoughts were running through his head as he continued analyzing the situation as if he was spinning threads. It's a pity that when I was sealed and lost my consciousness, the war had only just come to an end. I don't know what the 4 great true worlds have set up in this place over the years. Even if I absorbed Jing Nanzi's memories, I can only understand the gist of it. I don't know the details. After all, with Jing Nanzi's status, it's impossible for him to know the core secrets. The Duke of Crimson Flame was also thinking about this problem, and after a moment he sighed. Oh well, I'll leave one shift behind. I'll use it once you're close to Black Ink Planet. After all, they should be able to guess where you're going and will definitely lock down the area around Black Ink Planet. I'll need to warp and bring you through it to step into Black Ink Planet. Besides leaving behind the power for this shift, there's still one more chance to shift. I can let you temporarily shake off their pursuit, the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. It's useless. Even if I shift slightly further away, if I can't find what other method they're using besides the blood identification pearls to locate me, then even if I buy some time, they'll still catch up to me sooner or later. Su Ming shook his head. Time trickled by, and a sense of danger swiftly rose in Su Ming's heart. If this continued, then Su Ming was certain that within the next few days, he would once again face a large-scale pursuit. When he remembered the sword aura that destroyed Heavenly Treasure Planet, his pupils shrank. That power was definitely not something he could fight against. If he was struck head-on, then no matter how strong his physical body was, his body and soul would definitely be destroyed. Just what is it? As Su Ming mumbled, he lifted his head and looked at the endless galaxy above him. Every single time he looked at it, he would have a feeling that the universe was boundless and that he was incredibly weak. After a long while, Su Ming sighed in his heart. Just as he was about to lower his head, a shudder suddenly ran through his body. He stood up swiftly and stared at the galaxy above him. Could there be an eye that can observe all the regions in this galaxy as if it's monitoring them? No one can escape its gaze, Su Ming mumbled. I don't know whether there's such an eye, but now that you mentioned it, I remember. There are some gigantic runes that can cover an entire galaxy, and they can do what you just said. All the lives within the rune will be watched. The Duke of Crimson Flame manifested beside Su Ming. With a grave expression on his face, he lifted his head and looked at the sky. I remember now. Jing Nanzi once cast a sealing method. At that time, his presence was so great that I could even sense a power descending from the galaxy to seal him based on Jing Nanzi's thoughts. Su Ming's eyes sparkled, and a brilliant light shone in them. A rune. There's an incredibly gigantic rune in this entire galaxy. This rune monitors an entire galaxy, and it can see everything that happens in every corner. The Duke of Crimson Flame immediately said, his heart trembling. Then it must be because of this rune. Only this sort of method could allow me to avoid the power that distorts the galaxy and avoid the 7 days of fog, because this rune can instantly find me and lock onto me. Su Ming stared at the galaxy above him, and madness gradually appeared in his eyes. Bald crane. Su Ming swung his arm, and the bald crane immediately flew out from his storage bag. Once it turned into a person by the side, it immediately glared at the Duke of Crimson Flame. It did not dare provoke Su Ming, but in the depths of its heart, it had a feeling that it could bully this bald man. Su Ming looked at the bald crane and immediately asked, "Can you break this rune that monitors an entire galaxy?" The bald crane was momentarily stunned. Once it looked around it, it lifted its head to look at the galaxy, then shook its head vigorously without any hesitation. No, no, this rune. Before it could finish speaking, Su Ming tossed out a bag. Once the bald crane caught it, it opened it to take a look, and its eyes instantly sparkled. "Break this rune, and I'll give all of this to you," Su Ming said resolutely. All right, darn it all. Even if I have to use all my strength, I'll still deal with this stupid rune. I'll get my all." The bald crane shuddered and started screaming in excitement. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 891. Within the galaxy were the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds. Keeping a lookout over the barren lands were 6 radix planets in the shape of distorted ladders. At that instant, a brilliant light shone at the same time. As the light illuminated the entire area, the 6 radix planets spoke in unison. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula. There are 8 tiers of power trying to sinful barren lands. Western Ring Nebula. There's a 9th tier power in Western Ring Nebula and sinful barren lands. There are 9 realms. There are 10 layers in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. That voice reverberated through the many cultivation planets in the galaxy, causing the expressions of all the true guards on the cultivation planets belonging to the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds to change at that instant. Waves of aura erupted from them, and long arcs swiftly flew up from the cultivation planets. Yet at that moment, a powerful light suddenly erupted from 9 of the 19 radix planets that filled the 4 great true worlds. As that light appeared, the aloof voice changed. The divinity incarceration rune is in danger. Based on the divine essence law of the 4 great true worlds, all true world guards are to immediately head to the spot where the divinity incarceration rune is in danger and destroy all living beings who try to break the rune. There are 13 layers to this danger, and it will take 23,000 years to break. As the aloof voice spread out, The galaxy where the four great true worlds were stationed buzzed. Long arcs charged forward, and ancient bronze swords appeared in the galaxy where true sacred world was stationed. There were thousands of them, and there were even a few presences in plain Culpa realm. The might of their powerful divine senses caused the galaxy to tremble. The Abyss dragons roared in the galaxy where the Emperor of Abyss True World was stationed. Figures dressed in black armor appeared on all the Abyss dragons, and black smoke spread out from their bodies. A similar scene happened in the galaxy where True Morning Tao World was stationed. All the galaxies where the forces of power from the four great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands trembled under the aloof voice. Is it an alien invasion? Otherwise, what kind of power could make all 9 Radix stars flash at the same time? Could it really be a large-scale invasion of the outsiders? Otherwise, how could they have shaken the God-sealing formation? Is war coming? Numerous questions rose in the hearts of the true guards from the four great true worlds, and they turned into a heavy pressure. Almost at the same time, the area of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands started trembling violently. 15 of the 19 Radix planets started shining. This meant that a shocking change had happened in the barren lands of divine essence. The power that threatens the formation is at the 15th layer. It will take 6,200 years to break through. The power that threatens the formation has 16 layers. It will take 1,500 years to break through. There are 17 layers of danger to the formation. It will take 300 years to break through. There are 18 layers of danger to the formation. It will take 5 years to break through. There are 19 layers of danger to the array formation. It can be broken in 10 breaths. The aloof voice from the 15 Radix planets reverberated in the air at that moment. But before the true guards from the four great true worlds could be relocated, the aloof voice suddenly fell silent. After a few breaths of time passed, the voice could be heard again, and the words spoken caused everyone's minds to reel. The God-sealing formation is broken. I've lost 20% of my senses. As that voice spread out, the area where the four great true worlds were stationed instantly fell into dead silence. In Western Ring Nebula, in sinful barren lands, the bald crane's crazed laughter traveled forth, and there was an incomparably arrogant air within it. Darn it all, so what? You were still defeated by me in the end. Ha! Your Grandpa Crane is invincible. All runes are like crystals in front of me. They can't escape. Loud booming sounds rang out in the galaxy and spread in all directions. The bald crane's body manifested in the blood-red rune that enveloped the galaxy. It looked as if it had fused together with the rune and could not be distinguished from it. The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at this scene with a dumbfounded expression. After some time, his heart trembled violently. At that moment, he was 8/10 certain that the bald crane was the legendary person in his memories. A smile appeared on Su Ming's face. With a swing of his arm, the numerous storage bags before him immediately flew up and charged into the galaxy. A suction force instantly spread out from the blood-red rune in the galaxy and swept up all the storage bags before they disappeared without a trace. The bald crane's excited and arrogant laughter traveled forth once again. Little boy Su, how is it? Am I good? Heh, this stupid rune is too weak. It's not like I've never broken a rune that's 10 times stronger than it. When did I ever break a rune that's 10 times stronger than it? Light shone in the blood-red rune, and the bald crane manifested. It stood in front of Su Ming with a smug look on its face, no longer thinking about the past it could not remember. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he said calmly, "Control this rune and hide the fact that it has locked onto me. Make it so that no one can use this rune to search for me in the future." "No problem. I've already fused together with this stupid rune. If it dares not listen to me, I'll kill it." The bald crane struck its chest in an incredibly arrogant manner. "Ahem, little boy Su, we can actually make a few more deals. I saw you taking away a few storage bags just now. How about this? Give me the crystals in those storage bags, and I can use the power of this rune to help you warp a short distance." The bald crane licked its lips, and an expectant light appeared in its eyes as it looked at Su Ming. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he asked flatly, "What is this rune?" This rune is called the Great Divinity Sealing Rune, also known as the Divinity Incarceration Rune. It covers the area where the four great true worlds are stationed and sinful barren lands. There is also a part of it called the Great Space Sealing and Star Shrinking Rune, which was also known as the Space Sealing Rune. It was the door to the region where the four great true worlds were stationed. All those who were not protected by the rune would find it difficult to step into the region where the four great true worlds were stationed. When these two runes are combined, they form the strongest rune in the barren lands of divine essence. The bald crane quickly said, afraid that Su Ming would not agree to the trade it proposed. It did not care about runes. What it valued the most was crystals. "It's the divine void formation," the Marquis of Scarlet Fire exclaimed in shock. When Su Ming looked towards him, the Duke of Crimson Flame's expression was grave. A hint of nostalgia appeared in his eyes, along with a hint of fear. "Before I was sealed, I went through the divine void rune laid out by the four great true worlds. This rune has endless power, and it contains a law of its own. It's a little inappropriate to call it a rune. It's more like a galaxy," the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he waited quietly for the Duke of Crimson Flame to continue. "The area it is in can replace the original galaxy and envelop it in its own rune, turning it into Divine Void World. This rune killed an incredibly large number of races from the fifth true world in the past, and even when I was sealed, I never heard that this rune had been broken. Within its Divine Void World is a galaxy of its own, and there are laws and laws within it. There is no need for cultivators to control it, which is why a rune spirit has already been born in the rune. All those who are acknowledged by the rune spirit can use the power of the rune to kill their enemies in Divine Void World. I didn't expect that the rune would still be around, and it would even activate the Divine Void rune to cover half of the barren lands of Divine Essence. Besides Divine Essence Star Ocean, all the other regions belong to Divine Void World." The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at the boundless blood-red rune in the galaxy. There was a grave tone in his voice, along with a deep wariness. In fact, he even instinctively cast a glance at the bald crane and remembered the rumors in the past. "They're the rune spirit?" "No, I don't see the rune spirit." The bald crane was momentarily stunned. It closed its eyes and sensed the area carefully, then shook its head. "But this rune isn't complete. It seems to have gone through a destruction in the past, which is why it was split up and turned into the Divinity Incarceration Rune and the Space Incarceration Rune. But the Divinity Incarceration Rune I fused with does possess the divine ability you mentioned. It can form a galaxy, but its power isn't as shocking as you said, and most of it can't be activated." The bald crane scratched its bald head, then cast its gaze on Su Ming once again, and its gaze was filled with anticipation. Its power might be much weaker, but it's still very easy for a person to warp a short distance. "How about it, little boy Su? Do you want to make a trade?" As the bald crane spoke, the Duke of Crimson Flame was momentarily stunned by its side. After a moment of pensive silence, he seemed to have come to a realization. No wonder the four great true worlds can't use the power of this rune to chase after us. They also need a large number of cultivators to become true guards, because this rune no longer has a rune spirit. It's difficult for them to obtain its acknowledgement and can't activate the full power of the rune. They can only use simple methods to use this rune to monitor and investigate. But why didn't the old monsters who set up this rune in the past repair it? As the Duke of Crimson Flame mumbled, a brilliant light shone in Su Ming's eyes. "We can make a trade, but besides warping, I'll also need to obtain the rune's acknowledgement and use the power of the law in the galaxy formed by this rune." Su Ming looked at the bald crane, knowing that it would definitely put on a troubled look and then ask for more crystals, which is why he brought out a few storage bags and threw them at the bald crane. The bald crane grabbed the storage bags and examined them with excitement. Once it did so, it instinctively put on a troubled look, but when it saw the dark look on Su Ming's face, it weighed the pros and cons in its heart, then nodded with a sleazy look on its face. But let me say this first. Warping isn't a problem. If you want to use the power of this rune, with the 2 tints I've fused with it, I might only be able to let you borrow a small portion of it. But don't worry, once I fuse with more of it, I'll be able to let you borrow more of it. In fact, it won't be a problem for me to help you with your training. The key is that I need stimulation. Only powerful stimulation can make me bring out the strongest power in my life, and only then will I be able to fuse with more of it, the bald crane quickly said. Bring out the map of this galaxy. I want to see just how many people are chasing after my life. Killing intent shone in Su Ming's eyes. The bald crane immediately let out a roar, and immediately, an illusory projection that only true guards could possess appeared before Su Ming. That illusory projection was like a map. Once it spread out, it covered an incredibly large area. All the regions in the barren lands of divine essence besides divine essence Star Ocean, even the galaxies where the 4 great true worlds were stationed appeared. If the true guard from the 4 great true worlds saw this, they would definitely be shocked, because even they could only see a portion of the region with the help of the divinity incarceration rune. It would be difficult for them to see the entire region. In fact, even the powerful warriors in Plain Culpa realm could not make this sort of projection appear in the divinity incarceration rune. At most, they could only see 4/10 of it. There was more. Chapter 892. As the bald crane screeched in excitement, it clutched the bag tightly. There was a large amount of crystals inside, and most of them were not incomplete. Instead, they were stone coins of rather high quality that Su Ming had obtained in Death region. To the bald crane, these shiny things were its life. In fact, they were even more important than its life. This was the source that could make it fight and descend into madness. It was especially so when Su Ming brought out another storage bag and threw it to the bald crane, causing the bald crane's excitement to erupt in an instant. I'll give my all. I'll give my all. The bald crane's eyes turned bloodshot, and it started roaring. Darn it all, I'll give my all for these crystals. As the saying goes, beasts die for food, cranes die for money. This little boy, Su, has never been so generous before. He's even more miserly than I am. Now that he's so generous, I can't miss this chance. The bald crane let out a loud roar and leaped up to charge towards the galaxy above. I'll give it my all. With a bang, the bald crane grew several times its original size and became several hundreds of feet tall. Countless ripples appeared around its body, and they spread out rapidly, as if they wanted to fuse into the galaxy. Su Ming stared at the bald crane. He had never seen a rune that the bald crane could not break. He had only seen this sort of talent in Huzi before. At that moment, as he stared at the bald crane, Su Ming suddenly felt a sharp stab of pain in his heart. That pain did not come from his body. Perhaps it was not pain at all, but a bitterness born from the memories of the past. Su Ming knew that he was remembering Huzi, but without love and pain, this sort of reminiscence was not something he was allowed to do. The Duke of Crimson Flame watched the bald crane's madness with a dumbfounded expression. He had seen greedy people before, but he had never seen someone so greedy that such a powerful life force would erupt forth for 2 bags of crystals. Judging by the bald crane's expression, it was clear that its excitement had reached its peak. It shouldn't be the one in the legends, right? I remember that, sir. Doesn't seem to be so greedy. Besides, with that person's status, this amount of crystals. The Duke of Crimson Flame had always been uncertain about the bald crane. This was his secret, and he had not even asked Su Ming about it. The bald crane screeched loudly, and its body swelled up once again to become nearly 1,000 feet tall. The ripples around its body became even finer, and as they continued spreading out, they instantly filled the entire galaxy. The ripples didn't spread too far. Instead, they swept across the area as if they wanted to merge into the starry sky. However, the starry sky didn't seem to have any gaps, so the ripples could only move back and forth, unable to merge into the starry sky. Almost at the instant the bald crane showed its might, intending to break the rune that had existed for an unknown number of years and had been set up by the powerful warriors from the 4 great true worlds together. It covered the entire galaxy in the barren lands of divine essence besides the depths of the galaxy. Within the galaxy where the four great true worlds were stationed, 4 of the 19 radix planets instantly erupted with a powerful light. Aloof and merciless voices also came from these 4 radix planets. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula. There are 3 layers of power trying to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune. With these 3 layers of power, they will need 970 million years to succeed. That aloof voice spread through the entire area where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds were stationed, and it was immediately heard by the true guards and the powerful warriors from the 4 great true worlds on the cultivation planets. However, no one paid any attention to it. Occasionally, someone would lift his head to look at the sky. This sort of attempt to break the rune might not be common, but it was not rare either. Over the years, no one had ever succeeded in fusing with the divinity incarceration rune. In the eyes of all the true guards, this sort of method was an act of overestimating one's abilities. Yet at that moment, the aloof voice suddenly came from the 4 shining radix planets once again. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula. There are 4 layers of power trying to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune. With these 4 layers of power, they will need 720 million years to succeed. The power of 4 layers of power appeared so soon, but it's impossible for them to break the rune. I wonder which person is trying to overestimate himself. Western Ring Nebula, is that where the wanted criminal called Mosu is? Some of the true guards were training on the countless cultivation planets in the vast galaxy where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds were stationed. Their training was interrupted by the voice that spread through the galaxy, but most of them did not pay any attention to it. In Western Ring Nebula, Su Ming stared at the bald crane in the galaxy. At that moment, its body had swelled up to several thousands of feet. Roars tumbled out of its mouth, and a large amount of ripples reverberated continuously in a circular area of 10,000 lis. Damn it, what is this rune? Why is it so strong? Darn it all, why is a stupid rune so strong? Isn't this a scam? The bald crane started cursing loudly. Yet immediately after, the bald crane's curses came to an abrupt end, and its breathing became ragged. Even though it was in a galaxy, the bald crane's breathing still quickened, because when Su Ming lifted his hand, he threw out 2 more storage bags. The bald crane's eyes turned crimson. It had gone mad and lifted its head to roar. Its body swelled up once again, and this time it became 10,000 feet tall. As it roared, ripples that looked like tidal waves spread out from its body and swept in all directions. When the Duke of Crimson Flame saw this, his pupils shrank. Darn it all, I'm really going to fight you to the death. This time, I'm really going to fight you to the death. As it roared, it blinked and lowered its head to cast a quick glance at Su Ming. When it saw Su Ming bring out another storage bag, the bald crane went mad. Su Ming did not have much of anything else, but as he killed, he never let go of his storage bags. There might not be many items in each of them, but if they were added together, they would be quite a large fortune. At the same time the bald crane erupted with rage. This time, there were no longer 4 radix planets shining in a galaxy belonging to the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds keeping a lookout over the galaxy. Instead, there were 5 radix planets formed by numerous cultivation planets, and a brilliant light erupted from them. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula has the power of 5. Before the voice could finish speaking, it suddenly stopped speaking. Immediately after, when it reverberated in space once again, something had changed. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula has the power of 6. The voice stopped speaking once again. After a moment, when it reverberated in space once more, the expressions of nearly half of the true guards on all the cultivation planets in the galaxy belonging to the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds changed. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula has the power of 7 trying to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune. With the power of 7 trying to fuse with the divinity incarceration rune, They will need 95 million years to succeed. The bald crane's body was several tens of thousands of feet big. The ripples spreading out from its body covered an area of several hundreds of thousands of leagues. Its entire body trembled, and its eyes were bloodshot. Damn it, this is the most insane rune I've ever seen. It has 900,000 something layers? Darn all, how am I supposed to break this? As the bald crane spoke, it swiftly lowered its head and cast a glance at Su Ming. Then it started panting. Su Ming let out a harumph. When he lifted his right hand, he immediately brought out 5 storage bags and flung them before the bald crane's face. The bags opened, and once the sounds of crystals clashing against each other came from within, he tossed them to the side. There were already 20-something storage bags there. The bald crane's heart was filled with ecstasy. In its excitement, it looked as if it had gained motivation once more. Its body grew exponentially with a bang, and it stepped forward to 100,000 feet tall. The galaxy was filled with ripples spreading out from its body. These ripples swiftly swam through the galaxy, and for the first time, they showed signs of wanting to fuse with it. This won't do. I've really tried my best, but this rune is too insane. While Su Ming was not paying attention, the bald crane licked its lips and immediately started roaring. Without another word, Su Ming brought out another 10 storage bags. Once he revealed the crystals in them, he tossed them to the side. The bald crane shuddered, then lifted its head and roared at the sky. Its body grew to nearly 200,000 feet tall. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He brought out a few more storage bags and tossed them out. A brilliant light shone in the bald crane's eyes, and it was roaring excitedly in its heart. I'm rich. Ha! Little boy Su, aren't you a miser? Heh, I just used a small trick, and you still had to bring out all of it. He might still have some left. Yup, I can still squeeze more out of him. As the bald crane roared, its body grew once again. This time, it was nearly 300,000 feet tall. Wherever the ripples passed by, the galaxy would flash violently. By the side, the Duke of Crimson Flame was already completely dumbfounded. He stared at the bald crane blankly, and the shock in his heart turned into shock. This crane, could it really be that legendary lord? It's able to resist this kind of formation that seals a part of the starry sky. Once it turned into a body of 300,000 feet tall, the bald crane started wailing again. I can't take it anymore. I've tried my best, but this thing is too difficult to break. I need motivation. I need passion. I need stimulation. As it spoke, it quickly lowered its head to look at Su Ming with excitement and anticipation. You need stimulation. I'll give you stimulation. Su Ming let out a cold harumph. He lifted his right hand and seized the air. Immediately, 3 of the 30-something storage bags flew out and were caught by Su Ming. You have 10 breaths. With each breath that passes, I will bring back 3 storage bags. If I really can't break it, then I won't force myself, Su Ming said flatly and put away the 3 storage bags. A piercing and shrill scream of pain tumbled out of the bald crane's mouth. This time, its eyes truly turned red, and it was not doing it on purpose. Its heart was bleeding, and that extreme pain caused it to truly descend into madness. It was especially so when it saw Su Ming lifting his hand again, intending to bring back 3 more storage bags. The bald crane screamed madly. Grow! 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 Dart all grow! With a bang, the bald crane's body grew to 400,000 feet, 500,000 feet, until it reached 1 million feet. Break! 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 As it roared, the ripples around its body spread out violently. Wherever they went, the galaxy looked as if it was about to shatter. With a shocking bang, the galaxy was torn apart layer by layer, and a gigantic crimson rune exuded an ancient presence. It replaced the galaxy and appeared before Su Ming's eyes. At that moment, all the ripples fused into the crimson rune. The rune let out a loud bang that shook the galaxy. The bald crane had completely fused with the divinity incarceration rune the 4 great true worlds had set up in the past. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be updates today. Unless I finish my chapter, there will always be updates. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come to give me recommendation votes and monthly votes. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 893. Within the galaxy were the forces of power from the four great true worlds, keeping a lookout over the barren lands were 6 radix planets in the shape of distorted ladders. At that instant, a brilliant light shone at the same time. As the light illuminated the entire area, the 6 radix planets spoke in unison. Sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula. There are 8 tiers of power trying to sinful barren lands, Western Ring Nebula. There's a 9th tier power. In Western Ring Nebula and sinful barren lands, there are 9 realms. There are 10 layers in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. That voice reverberated through the many cultivation planets in the galaxy, causing the expressions of all the true guards on the cultivation planets belonging to the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds to change at that instant. Waves of aura erupted from them, and long arcs swiftly flew up from the cultivation planets. Yet at that moment, a powerful light suddenly erupted from 9 of the 19 radix planets that filled the 4 great true worlds. As that light appeared, the aloof voice changed. The divinity incarceration rune is in danger. Based on the divine essence law of the 4 great true worlds, all true world guards are to immediately head to the place where the divinity incarceration rune is in danger and destroy all living beings who try to break the rune. There are 13 layers to this danger, and it will take 23,000 years to break. As the aloof voice spread out, the galaxy where the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands buzzed. Long arcs charged forward, and ancient bronze swords appeared in the galaxy where true Sacredine world was stationed. There were thousands of them, and there were even a few presences in plain Culpa realm. The might of their powerful divine senses caused the galaxy to tremble. The Abyss dragons roared in the galaxy where the Emperor of Abyss True World was stationed. Figures dressed in black armor appeared on all the Abyss dragons, and black smoke spread out from their bodies. A similar scene happened in the galaxy where True Morning Dao World was stationed. All the galaxies where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands trembled under the aloof voice. Is it an alien invasion? Otherwise, what kind of power could make all 9 radix stars flash at the same time? Could it really be a large-scale invasion of the outsiders? Otherwise, how could they have shaken the God-sealing formation? Is war coming? Numerous questions rose in the hearts of the true guards from the 4 great true worlds, and they turned into a heavy pressure. Almost at the same time, the area of power from the 4 great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands started trembling violently. 15 of the 19 radix planets started shining. This meant that a shocking change had happened in the barren lands of divine essence. The power that threatens the formation is at the 15th layer. It will take 6,200 years to break through. The power that threatens the formation has 16 layers. It will take 1,500 years to break through. There are 17 layers of danger to the formation. It will take 300 years to break through. There are 18 layers of danger to the formation. It will take 5 years to break through. There are 19 layers of danger to the array formation. It can be broken in 10 breaths. The aloof voice from the 15 radix planets reverberated in the air at that moment. But before the true guards from the 4 great true worlds could be relocated, the aloof voice suddenly fell silent. After a few breaths of time passed, the voice could be heard again, and the words spoken caused everyone's minds to reel. The God-sealing formation is broken. I've lost 20% of my senses. As that voice spread out, the area where the 4 great true worlds were stationed instantly fell into dead silence. In Western Ring Nebula in sinful barren lands, the bald crane's crazed laughter traveled forth, and there was an incomparably arrogant air within it. Darn all, so what? You were still defeated by me in the end. Ha! Your Grandpa Crane is invincible. All runes are like crystals in front of me. They can't escape. Loud booming sounds rang out in the galaxy and spread in all directions. The bald crane's body manifested in the blood-red rune that enveloped the galaxy. It looked as if it had fused together with the rune and could not be distinguished from it. The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at this scene with a dumbfounded expression. After some time, his heart trembled violently. At that moment, he was 8/10 certain that the bald crane was the legendary person in his memories. A smile appeared on Su Ming's face. With a swing of his arm, the numerous storage bags before him immediately flew up and charged into the galaxy. A suction force instantly spread out from the blood-red rune in the galaxy and swept up all the storage bags before they disappeared without trace. The bald crane's excited and arrogant laughter traveled forth once again. "Little boy Su, how is it? Am I good? Haha, this stupid rune is too weak. It's not like I've never broken a rune that's 10 times stronger than it. When did I ever break a rune that's 10 times stronger than it?" Light shone in the blood-red rune, and the bald crane manifested. It stood in front of Su Ming with a smug look on its face, no longer thinking about the past it could not remember. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he said calmly, "Control this rune and hide the fact that it has locked onto me. Make it so that no one can use this rune to search for me in the future." "No problem. I've already fused together with this stupid rune. If it dares not listen to me, I'll kill it." The bald crane struck its chest in an incredibly arrogant manner. "Ahem, little boy Su, we can actually make a few more deals. I saw you taking away a few storage bags just now. How about this? Give me the crystals in those storage bags, and I can use the power of this rune to help you warp a short distance." The bald crane licked its lips, and an expectant light appeared in its eyes as it looked at Su Ming. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he asked flatly, "What is this rune?" "This rune is called the Great Divinity Sealing Rune, also known as the Divinity Incarceration Rune. It covers the area where the 4 great true worlds are stationed in sinful barren lands. There is also a part of it called the Great Space Sealing and Star Shrinking Rune, which was also known as the Space Sealing Rune. It was the door to the area where the 4 great true worlds were stationed. All those who were not protected by the rune would find it difficult to step into the area where the 4 great true worlds were stationed. When these 2 runes are combined, they form the strongest rune in the barren lands of divine essence." The bald crane quickly said, afraid that Su Ming would not agree to the trade proposed. It did not care about runes. What it valued the most was crystals. "It's the divine void formation," the Marquis of Scarlet Fire exclaimed in shock. When Su Ming looked towards him, the Duke of Crimson Flame's expression was grave. A hint of nostalgia appeared in his eyes, along with a hint of fear. "Before I was sealed, I went through the divine void rune laid out by the 4 great true worlds. This rune has endless power, and it contains a law of its own. It's a little inappropriate to call a rune. It's more like a galaxy," the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he waited quietly for the Duke of Crimson Flame to continue. "The area it is in can replace the original galaxy and envelop it in its own rune, turning it into Divine Void World. This rune killed an incredibly large number of races from the 5th true world in the past, and even when I was sealed, I never heard that this rune had been broken. Within its Divine Void World is a galaxy of its own, and there are laws and laws within it. There is no need for cultivators to control it, which is why a rune spirit has already been born in the rune. All those who are acknowledged by the rune spirit can use the power of the rune to kill their enemies in Divine Void World. I didn't expect that the rune would still be around, and it would even activate the Divine Void Rune to cover half of the barren lands of Divine Essence. Besides Divine Essence Star Ocean, all the other regions belong to Divine Void World." The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at the boundless blood-red rune in the galaxy. There was a grave tone in his voice, along with a deep wariness. In fact, he even instinctively cast a glance at the bald crane and remembered the rumors in the past. "They're the rune spirit?" "No, I don't see the rune spirit." The bald crane was momentarily stunned. It closed its eyes and sensed the area carefully, then shook its head. But this rune isn't complete. It seems to have gone through a destruction in the past, which is why it was split up and turned into the Divinity Incarceration rune and the Space Incarceration rune. But the Divinity Incarceration rune I fused with does possess the divine ability you mentioned. It can form a galaxy, but its power isn't as shocking as you said, and most of it can't be activated. The bald crane scratched its bald head, then cast its gaze on Su Ming once again, and its gaze was filled with anticipation. Its power might be much weaker, but it's still very easy for a person to warp a short distance. How about it, little boy Su? Do you want to make a trade? As the bald crane spoke, the Duke of Crimson Flame was momentarily stunned by its side. After a moment of pensive silence, he seemed to have come to a realization. No wonder the four great true worlds can't use the power of this rune to chase after us. They also need a large number of cultivators to become true guards, because this rune no longer has a rune spirit. It's difficult for them to obtain its acknowledgement and can't activate the full power of the rune. They can only use simple methods to use this rune to monitor and investigate. But why didn't the old monsters who set up this rune in the past repair it? As the Duke of Crimson Flame mumbled, a brilliant light shone in Su Ming's eyes. We can make a trade, but besides warping, I'll also need to obtain the rune's acknowledgement and use the power of the law in the galaxy formed by this rune. Su Ming looked at the bald crane, knowing that it would definitely put on a troubled look and then ask for more crystals, which is why he brought out a few storage bags and threw them at the bald crane. The bald crane grabbed the storage bags and examined them with excitement. Once it did so, it instinctively put on a troubled look, but when it saw the dark look on Su Ming's face, it weighed the pros and cons in its heart, then nodded with a sleazy look on its face. But let me say this first. Warping isn't a problem. If you want to use the power of this rune, with the 2 tints I fused with it, I might only be able to let you borrow a small portion of it. But don't worry, once I fuse with more of it, I'll be able to let you borrow more of it. In fact, it won't be a problem for me to help you with your training. The key is that I need stimulation. Only powerful stimulation can make me bring out the strongest power in my life, and only then will I be able to fuse with more of it, the bald crane quickly said. Bring out the map of this galaxy. I want to see just how many people are chasing after my life. Killing intent shone in Su Ming's eyes. The bald crane immediately let out a roar, and immediately, an illusory projection that only true guards could possess appeared before Su Ming. That illusory projection was like a map. Once it spread out, it covered an incredibly large area. All the regions in the barren lands of Divine Essence, besides Divine Essence Star Ocean. Even the galaxies where the four great true worlds were stationed appeared. If the true guards from the four great true worlds saw this, they would definitely be shocked, because even they could only see a portion of the region with the help of the Divinity Incarceration rune. It would be difficult for them to see the entire region. In fact, even the powerful warriors in Plain Culper Realm could not make this sort of projection appear in the Divinity Incarceration rune. At most, they could only see 4/10 of it. There was more. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 894. The illusory projection that appeared before Su Ming was incredibly large. It clearly showed the shape of half a gourd. In fact, Su Ming only needed to cast his gaze on a certain spot, and the illusion of the people and things he saw at that spot would immediately appear in his head. This feeling made him feel as if he was in control of this part of the galaxy. All the lives and existences in this galaxy had nowhere to hide. All of them could be seen clearly in his eyes. Even with Su Ming's indifference, when he noticed this scene, his heart trembled, and disbelief appeared on his face. He suddenly understood where the true guard strength came from. Besides their level of cultivation, the most important thing was that they could keep an eye on the entire galaxy. With this projection around, a person could basically be invincible. He saw an endless amount of white dots and planets. He saw the four regions in sinful barren lands, and he saw the four forces of power from the four great true worlds stationed to keep a lookout over these four regions. At the same time, he also saw the space sealing rune the ball crane had mentioned just now. That rune was like a long river that existed between the four regions of sinful barren lands and the four forces of power from the true world station there. It was like a ravine that had prevented the people in sinful barren lands from taking even half a step across it over the countless years. He also saw Blacking Planet. This was a planet located at the edge of sinful barren lands. Its color was marked as purplish red, and it was incredibly far away from this place. Once Su Ming swept his gaze past the illusory projection, he discovered a few strange places. These places were as red as blood on the projection, causing all those who saw them to feel terrified. A strong sense of danger would rise in their hearts. The rune could only cover the general area of these places. It was impossible for Su Ming to see the details of these places. When he focused his gaze on them, the sense of danger turned into a loud bang in his heart. There seemed to be a powerful suction force that wanted to devour all of Su Ming's gaze. There were 4 such places, and they were like seas of blood that filled the 4 galaxies of sinful barren lands. The closest one was not too far away from where Su Ming was. Each of the 4 great galaxies has a region like this. Su Ming forced down the strong sense of danger in his heart. Once he averted his gaze, that sense of danger naturally disappeared. That place is a foreign land. Marquis Crimson Flame said softly as he looked at the scarlet-red area around him. Su Ming did not immediately bother with them. Instead, he closed his eyes and searched through the memories of the powerful world paragons he had absorbed with the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. After a moment, Su Ming opened his eyes and his pupils shrank. 4 great lands. All those who stepped into those places would almost certainly die. Over the years, it was incredibly rare for anyone who entered those foreign lands to return alive. Even the true guard from the 4 great true worlds avoided those 4 regions, treating them as if they were in a hopeless situation, including the barren lands of divine essence. They are known as the 5 forbidden areas in the barren lands of divine essence. Su Ming obtained his answer from the memories he absorbed. What is the foreign land? Su Ming looked towards the Duke of Crimson Flame. Before the 4 great true worlds fought against the 5th true world, this galaxy was known as the barren lands of divine essence. It does not belong to the 4 great true worlds or the 5th true world. It is a boundary and also a mysterious region. There were countless legends about this place, and at that time, these places had already existed. Many people had gone to explore them, but very few had returned. All those who returned were unwilling to talk about their experiences in the foreign lands. As time passed, the dangers and mysteriousness of this place turned into a mystery. Then your Abyss Builder's ancestor, the sovereign of the 5th true world, came back alive after he explored one of the foreign lands. He might not have talked much about it, but the speed at which his level of cultivation rose was terrifying. In the end, he even stepped into the realm of masters of fate, lives, and death. At that time, he said one thing: the foreign lands, the beginning of the barren lands of divine essence. Very few people know just what is in those foreign lands. Even the war between the 5 great true worlds could not shake their existence. Even if time passed until now, they still exist, the Duke of Crimson Flame mumbled. He looked at the foreign lands, and there was an ancient tone to his voice, as if it was an ancient gust of wind blowing through the passage of time. Su Ming cast a deep glance at the foreign lands that were the closest to him. After some time, he averted his gaze and looked towards the other spots in the illusory projection. Su Ming saw the 4 great true worlds headquarters. Over there, the most eye-catching thing he saw were the 19 blue planets. They were scattered at different spots in the 4 great true worlds headquarters. There was a large number of cultivation planets, an innumerable amount of glowing spots that represented the true guards, and there was also a rotating vortex at the periphery of the 4 great true worlds headquarters. That was the exit of the barren lands of divine essence. It led to the 4 great true worlds, to True Morning Dao World, and to Een Death region. Master, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, Huzi, Berserker's home. Su Ming looked at the vortex that represented the exit. As he mumbled under his breath, he suddenly felt a sharp stab of pain in his heart again. He might have lost his sense of pain, but the power that sealed his pain could only make the pain in his physical body disappear. It could not wipe away the stab of pain in his heart that did not belong to his physical body. After a long while, Su-Ming closed his eyes. When he opened them, the aloof look returned to his eyes once again. When his gaze swept past the area where the four great true worlds were stationed to keep a lookout over the barren lands, a familiar ripple traveled into his heart, causing him to be momentarily stunned. His gaze fell on one of the glowing spots that represented the true guards, and a picture immediately appeared in his head. In that picture was a man dressed in a black robe. His skin was covered in an endless amount of black tattoos. That man was sitting cross-legged on a cultivation planet that was covered in black soil. As he meditated with his eyes closed, wisps of black smoke spread out from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. There was poison contained within that black smoke, causing not only the soil around him to turn black, all the plants and trees to wither. Su-Ming looked at the picture that appeared in his head, and his eyes gradually narrowed. Ji and Hai. After a moment, Su-Ming mumbled. He had recognized this person's identity. This man was Ji and Hai, the clone he had refined in the past. Madame Ji's appearance in the past had caused Hong Luo to wake up in Su-Ming's body. She had brought him a series of troubles, but at the same time, she had also given him an incredibly great serendipity. Ji and Hai's corpse had been refined by Su-Ming into his clone. The black beetles around his body had also allowed the clone to possess great combat abilities. It was a pity that Su-Ming had not been able to find the clone that had disappeared during his trip to the world of Nine. Right then, he saw it in the barren lands of divine essence, and Su-Ming could not help but be stunned. Ji and Hai is just a clone, and he died a long time ago. He was killed by Madame Ji, but by the looks of it now, he clearly has intelligence. And why is there such a thick poison on his body? Su-Ming looked at the picture in his head, and the scenes from the world of Nine flashed before his eyes. Su-Ming had found the poisoned corpse in the past, and once he brought it out of the world of Nine, he had given it to the fated kin to protect them. It could also be considered as one of the things that had been weighing on Su-Ming's mind. Ji and Hai. I couldn't find him in the world of Nine in the past, and I thought that he had been taken away by someone and brought out of the world of Nine beforehand. But even after I became the god of berserkers and had my divine sense sweep through the land of berserkers, I still couldn't find his presence. If that's the case, then he wasn't taken away by someone in the past. He was in the world of Nine, and he left with the ancient bronze sword to go to true Sacredine world. A brilliant light shone in Su-Ming's eyes as he started analyzing the situation in his heart. He's become much stronger. He's actually a lord of World Plane Realm, or else he wouldn't have been able to become a true guard. Interesting. Su-Ming swept his gaze past the projection, and his pupils instantly shrank once again. He could clearly see that there were two other glowing spots on the cultivation planet where Ji and Hai was. Zhe Long Shun. Liwa, they're still alive? Su-Ming stood up swiftly, and his expression kept changing. After some time, he decided to look through the galaxy where the forces of power from the four great true worlds were stationed. Several hours later, Su-Ming's gaze focused on a glowing spot, and there was a slightly complicated look on his face. Yi Wang. Su-Ming closed his eyes. After a moment, when he opened them, he shifted his gaze away from the galaxy where the four great true worlds were stationed. Once he found his location, he looked around him. Through the illusory projection, Su-Ming could clearly see dozens of glowing spots flying around him in a daze, as if they could not find where he was and were searching around for him. Besides these glowing spots, there are also 9 ancient bronze swords in the distance. As they charged forward, they seemed to have also lost track of where Su-Ming was. You can't use the rune to lock down on me from a long distance, and it's also difficult for you to use the blood identification pearls to let everyone know where I am. Because of that, the Duke of Crimson Flame's art of distorting time and space for 7 days can continue taking effect, causing others to be unable to find my location accurately. Now, I can use the power of the rune to know where you are. Since you came to kill me, then you will have to pay a price first. Killing intent spread out from Su Ming's entire body. When he lifted his right hand, the crimson coffin under his feet melted into a long spear. Once he held in his hand, the bald crane let out a roar, and ripples immediately spread out from Su Ming's body. A small blood-red rune appeared under his feet, and with a flash, Su Ming instantly disappeared. Dozens of long arcs were searching the area in Western Ring Nebula. These people were all cultivators who had come to kill Su Ming in exchange for the reward after being stimulated by the reward offered by the four great true worlds. They did not care about death. After all, they no longer had any hope in the barren lands of divine essence. Making themselves stronger and increasing their levels of cultivation was the only thought in their lives. That was why they could be said to be eyeing this reward with hostility. However, even though the blood identification pearls on their bodies were shining, they were guiding them to a place that was rather far away. However, not too long ago, the blood identification pearls had been guiding them to this region. Just what happened? Could it be that Mo Su used that enchanted treasure of his to shift into the distance? There was an old man in the galaxy with a dark expression on his face. He was dressed in a blue robe, and as he moved forward in the form of a long arc, he felt puzzled. As he flew forward, his heart suddenly trembled. When he turned his head around, he immediately saw a red rune appearing in the galaxy not too far behind him. There was an indistinct figure in the rune that looked like ripples covering the surface of water. When he walked out, the ripples disappeared to reveal the gray-haired Su Ming. The old man was momentarily stunned, then his pupils shrank. Killing intent appeared in his eyes, but there was also surprise and bewilderment. Without any hesitation, the presence of world planes spread out from his body. Boom! A blue sea of fog spread out in all directions with him as its center, covering a circular area of several hundreds of thousands of feet. Yet at the instant the sea of fog spread out, Su Ming lifted his right hand and pointed at the old man. "Use the power of the rune to suppress this person," Su Ming said coldly. "There's more. I beg for monthly votes. I beg for recommendation votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 895. Since he warped in front of me, and judging by the lack of shock on his face, he must definitely have the confidence to kill me, or else with the rumors about him killing all those people in Heavenly Treasure Planet, he wouldn't have done this. At the same time the old man in blue spread out his power of world planes, a thought flashed in his head. Without any hesitation, once he spread out his power of world planes, he lifted his hands, bent his waist, and pushed against the galaxy. At the same time, a muffled roar came from all directions in the blue sea of fog that had spread out to hundreds of thousands of feet. Bow to all directions. That voice sounded as if there were tens of thousands of people roaring at the same time. At the instant it reverberated in the area, indistinct figures instantly appeared in the sea of fog. Those figures filled up the entire area, and there were tens of thousands of them. There were men and women, old and young. Their expressions were apathetic, but there was fanaticism in their eyes. Their bodies were illusory and did not corporeal, but at the moment they appeared, they lifted their hands and bent their backs to bow, just like the old man in blue. Boom! A vast, mighty pressure shook the galaxy. Su Ming immediately sensed a power that was like the might of heaven descend on him in an invisible manner. Once it locked down all the places in front of him, it turned into a suppressive force. It was as if a huge hand was about to appear around him and crush him. Su Ming let out a cold harumph. As the power of the rune reverberated in the air, a red circular rune appeared under Su Ming's feet. That rune shone, and when it first appeared, it was only about 100 feet in size. Yet the instant it appeared, it started expanding rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it grew to several thousands of feet in size, and it fought head-on against the blue sea of fog formed by the old man's power of world planes, as well as the pressure that came from bowing to him from all directions. Bang, bang, bang. Cracks appeared in the galaxy, and a violent wave of impact erupted from space. The blood-red rune under Su Ming's feet grew to 300,000 feet and continued crashing into the old man's sea of fog. Boom! Boom! The old man's expression changed. His sea of fog crumbled when it crashed into Su Ming's red rune. As the impact tumbled backwards, he immediately retreated. When he was 10,000 feet away, a solemn expression appeared on his face. Su Ming was also swept back by the impact, but he was only forced back 1,000 feet. The red rune was under his feet. He might not be a lord of a world plane, but with the power of the rune supporting him, as long as he was within the area of the divinity incarceration rune that covered the entire galaxy, he could endlessly borrow the power of the rune. With this power added to his body, Su Ming could bring out a power that was similar to those in World Plane Realm. The rune under his feet was flashing rapidly at that moment. As red light surged into the sky, Su Ming lifted his head swiftly, formed a seal with his right hand, and swung his arm forward. The space before him immediately trembled, and another crimson, circular formation appeared. This formation was vertical like a wall, and it charged toward the blue-robed old man 10,000 feet away at an extremely fast speed. As it closed in, the vertical, circular, blood-red rune continued growing larger. In the blink of an eye, it turned into 100,000 feet. From the distance, it was not shocking, but if anyone looked closer, they would find that the rune was incredibly huge. Its speed was indescribable, and it closed in on Su Ming in the blink of an eye. Disbelief appeared in the blue-robed old man's eyes. He might not be in the middle stage of World Plane Realm, but he was at the peak of the initial stage of World Plane Realm. He had seen many things, and when he first saw the red rune under Su Ming's feet, he found it slightly familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it before. When he saw the rune coming towards him, a bang rang out in his head, and he remembered. This is impossible. This is the divinity incarceration rune. This is the divinity incarceration rune that only the true guards of the four great true worlds can mobilize. You're a true guard. This discovery almost scared the old man out of his wits. As hundreds of thoughts raced through his head, an incredibly absurd thought popped up in his head. Could it be that this so-called bounty is a scheme? A scheme by the four great true worlds to kill us. But the old man's eyes were bloodshot. With a loud roar, his robes fluttered, and as the sea of fog that was formed by the power of world planes tumbled about behind him, the 10,000 shadows manifested and wrapped their fists in their palms before bowing to him. The people at the back of the group bowed, and soon after, the people in front of them did the same. As they bowed one after another, they looked like waves that eventually swept towards the old man. The old man in blue wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards the incoming red rune. Boom! The air before the old man trembled, and an illusory figure that was several hundreds of thousands of feet big appeared. That illusory figure was not in the shape of a person, but two hands that were wrapped around each other. Those hands belonged to the old man, and they also belonged to the 10,000 people behind him. Once the illusory figure appeared and bowed before the old man, it immediately crashed into the incoming red rune. Bang! 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 The illusory hands shattered inch by inch. As they tumbled backwards, the old man's hair danced madly, as if there was a huge gust of wind crashing into his face. At the same time, the 10,000 shadows behind him shattered and disappeared. The red rune swiftly closed in. Once it closed in and touched the old man, the red rune turned into a huge red net that enveloped the old man within and started suppressing him. At the same time, Su Ming's body rapidly withered away, and in the blink of an eye, he turned into an endless amount of shards that charged forward. They shot through the net formed by the red rune and rushed straight into the old man's body to absorb his memories, devour his world planes, and absorb his physical power. After a moment, as the old man's body disappeared, an endless amount of shards rushed out and gathered together in the galaxy to turn into Su Ming. In the blink of an eye, his body recovered from its withered state. A thick presence of world planes spread out from Su Ming's body, and a brilliant light shone in his eyes. If I absorb one more person's power of world planes, then I will be able to touch the barrier separating me from heaven realm. Once the disaster descends, if I break through, then my physical body will become a world paragon. At the same time desire appeared in Su Ming's eyes, he also sensed the might of borrowing the power of the rune. It was an overwhelming suppression that did not allow the old man to fight back. After all, Su Ming could no longer be considered to have attacked in this battle. The one fighting against the old man in blue was not him, but the divinity incarceration rune that covered this part of the galaxy. He might only be able to use 2/10 of the rune's power, but suppressing a cultivator in the initial stage of World Plane Realm was a piece of cake to the rune. He slowly clenched his fist, and a feeling of strength that he had never felt before filled his heart. This power might not truly belong to him, but no matter what, at that moment it belonged to him. As Su Ming watched himself slowly unclench his fist, a massacre unfolded in the galaxy. This massacre did not last for long. Su Ming only killed 3 people before he warped and left the place. This was because he had already touched the barrier separating him from Heaven Realm. The art of swallowing hollow shadows whole had reached a state of saturation and could no longer absorb any more power of world planes. More importantly, Su Ming could sense that the first disaster of the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole would arrive several days later. Su Ming fought these 3 people cleanly and efficiently. He had the ability to warp short distances, and he could appear at any spot he wanted. Even if someone also warped to escape, with the illusory projection locking down on them, Su Ming could still catch up to them. The power of the rune could allow Su Ming to possess a blood-red rune picture that was similar to that of a world plane, allowing his weakest point when he faced lords of world planes to be completely filled. The art of suppression allowed him to borrow the power of the rune and use the divinity incarceration rune to sweep through everything. Perhaps this series of battles was unfair, because the powerful warriors who died did not die in Su Ming's hands, but because of the divinity incarceration rune. Once he killed these 3 people, Su Ming left. He did not appear before the 9 ancient bronze swords. Unless he could use the power of the rune to obtain even more, Su Ming did not want to touch the sword aura that could destroy Heavenly Treasure Planet so easily. Several days later, Su Ming sat cross-legged on the surface of one of the meteors charging through the galaxy. The Duke of Crimson Flame was not too far away, with a solemn expression on his face as he protected Su Ming. The bald crane was also crawling by his side. Occasionally, a silly grin would appear on its face. Clearly, it was incredibly happy that it had an increasing number of crystals. Su Ming had already been sitting on this meteor for 3 days. He had chosen this meteor as his isolation spot because it was constantly moving and it was not slow either. By doing so, he could not be located by the blood identification pearls. If he stayed in one spot and did not move, then the art of distorting time and space for 7 days would be useless. At that moment, his body was squirming and his veins popped up. There were also runic symbols shining faintly on him, as if they existed in his blood. As his blood flowed through his body, it looked as if there were an endless amount of shining and swimming runic symbols all over his body. The first disaster of the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole is the disaster of burning flames. Once you get through it, the power of your physical body will go through a drastic change. Once it fuses with the power of world planes, your physical body will become that of a world paragon. But you must search for another clone as soon as possible, or else once the second cycle of saturation appears and the second disaster descends, then regardless of whether you manage to get through it or not, your soul will completely fuse with this body, and from then on, you will no longer be able to have another clone. Remember this, remember this. These were the words the Duke of Crimson Flame had given Su Ming solemnly before he went into isolation for the first disaster. Time trickled by, and the speed at which the runic symbols swam about in Su Ming's body became faster. There were even wisps of fire spreading out of his pores, filling his entire body and burning it. More flames spread out, and gradually, Su Ming's entire body was surrounded by a sea of fire. At the same time, Su Ming isolated himself on the meteor to get through the disaster. A notice spread out from the galaxy where the four great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands. This notice shocked almost all the cultivators there. In fact, some of the old monsters who had been in isolation for a long period of time were also forced to send this notice to their isolation grounds. Those who kill Mo Su will be rewarded with 1,000 world stones and a cultivation planet that has been modified and is not an abandoned cultivation planet that has a complete essence of a world. At the same time this announcement shook Western Ring Nebula, not only did the cultivators from Western Ring Nebula move out, the cultivators from the other three galaxies also rushed over. Similarly, the true guards from True Sacredine World who were sent by the forces of power from the four great true worlds to hunt down Mo Su increased in number. Among them, Zilong Shun, Li Hua, Jian Hai, and the other newcomers were also sent out to search for Mo Su through the entire Western Ring Nebula. True Morning Dao World and True Sacredine World had also sent out their true guards to join the chase. Besides the mysterious fourth true world, 3 of the 4 great true worlds had sent out their true guards. There was also a long arc that charged towards the main camp from the galaxy where True Sacredine World was stationed. There was a young man in that long arc. His expression was dark, and there was the mark of a peach blossom at the center of his brows. He had orders to head to the main camp to report this matter to the 4 great true generals. He was also to search through all the ancient scrolls over the past tens of thousands of years to find the origins of the person called Mo Su. He wanted to find out when this person had been sent to the barren lands of divine essence, which true world he came from, and what great crime he had committed. That's all. It's already midnight. Everyone, don't forget your recommendation tickets. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 896. Be it monthly votes or recommendation votes, please give them to me. 6 chapters. Basically, I wrote 6 chapters as soon as my body recovered. I said I would make up for it this week, and I did it. There's still one more chapter. I'll write it again in a few days. If you need recommendation votes or crave for monthly votes, please do it, heroes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 897. The barren lands of divine essence were in the shape of a gourd. The mouth of the gourd was where the main camp of the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands was located. This place was heavily guarded, and it was deathly still all year round. Even the true guards from the 4 great true worlds were not allowed to take even half a step into this place unless they were summoned. All those who violated this rule would be punished with a grave crime and sent to sinful barren lands. There was a huge vortex in the area of the main camp. It was constantly rotating, but it was silent. From the distance, the light from the vortex was dazzling, as if it was a galaxy, but if anyone got closer, they would be able to see that the galaxy that formed this galaxy was made up of stars. An endless amount of stars formed this gigantic vortex, and all those who saw it would be unable to help themselves from being shocked. At that moment, a long arc charged over from beyond the vortex. Once it closed in, that long arc turned into a person. It was a young man with the mark of a peach blossom at the center of his brows. With a respectful expression on his face, he wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply beyond the vortex. Compared to the huge vortex, his existence was like that of an ant. He was completely inconspicuous. Time trickled by, and soon several hours went by. The young man still bowed deeply without moving or saying a single word. He just waited quietly. Suddenly, the speed at which the vortex rotated became slightly faster. As it rotated rapidly, a cultivation planet broke away from the vortex's orbit and charged towards the periphery. With a presence that could destroy the sky and earth, it charged towards the young man. Once it stopped before the young man, A cold and indifferent voice came slowly from the cultivation planet. Come. That voice might have only said one word, but it contained a supreme, awe-inspiring might. It was as if no one in the world could go against his words. Only then did the young man with the mark of the peach blossom at the center of his brows lift his body, which had been bowing deeply, and turn into a long arc that charged towards the cultivation planet before him. After a moment, he stepped onto the cultivation planet, and before him was a vast desert. He could vaguely see a towering hall in the distance. That hall was yellowish-brown, and it stood alone in the desert. There was a whirlwind howling around it, sweeping up sand and turning it into a windstorm. At the same time, in front of the temple, in the desert, nearly 100 figures could be seen. They were all cultivators. There were men and women, old and young. They lay on the sand and slowly crawled forward. Their clothes were tattered and tattered, but their expressions were fanatical and strange. They were slowly crawling toward the main hall. The young man with the mark of a peach blossom between his brows looked at the great hall in the distance. He quietly crouched down until his body was prostrated on the sand. Then, just like the other figures he saw, he crawled forward. Everything was deathly silent. Other than the moaning of the wind, there was no other sound. The people crawling on the ground gave off a strange feeling. Even the cultivator in the front, who seemed to be very close to the main hall, was still moving forward, as if he couldn't see anything. It was as if this hall was different in everyone's eyes. The young man with the mark of a peach blossom at the center of his brows continued crawling forward. His robes were torn and showed signs of being burned. His hair was dry, but there was determination in his eyes. After 2 hours, he finally crawled to the hall in front of his eyes in a disheveled state. When he was there, he sucked in a deep breath. Once he stood up, he walked into the hall. The hall was very empty. There was only a table in it. There was an oil lamp on it, and the flame in the wick swayed slightly. Countless faces with strange smiles could be seen interchanging in the light. None of the faces were the same, as if the faces in the lamp had never been the same over the countless years. The crackling sounds of flames burning echoed in the hall. Besides the oil lamp on the table, there was also a bamboo slip. Half of the bamboo slip was unfurled, and under the light from the lamp, it exuded an ancient presence. The young man knelt down on one knee and pressed his palm against the flagstone on the ground. He lowered his head and said respectfully, "I, Daorun, a 9th-level true guard from True Sacredine World, greet Lord True, General Huiju. Tell me." An ancient and cold voice came from the flame in the wick of the oil lamp. The face in the flame no longer changed. It stopped on a woman's face with the ghost of a smile on her lips. The first time I discovered this person was in Crimson Flame Planet. The young man did not dare lift his head. In a low voice, he told her everything he knew about the person called Su without holding anything back. I want to investigate the ancient scrolls of reincarnation and find this person's origins. From there, I will come up with a plan to lure him out and make him appear on his own. His voice echoed in the hall. When the young man finished speaking, his voice was still echoing in the area and lingering for a long time. After some time, the woman's face in the lamp opened her mouth, and an ancient and cold voice tumbled out. This person is not in the cycle of reincarnation. The young man was momentarily stunned. Then his expression immediately changed. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and spoke in a low voice. "I'm certain that this person is still in Western Ring Nebula, and I am also certain that he has used some unknown method to fuse with the divinity incarceration rune. He can use the power of the rune to warp or suppress others. Lord True General, please seal off the borders leading to the other galaxies in Western Ring Nebula and close the divinity incarceration rune. I will give you a wisp of candle flame. Burn your life and maintain this candle flame forever. Fate will guide you to find this person. I will allow you to close the divinity incarceration rune once, and the duration will not exceed 3 months." Once the ancient and cold voice finished speaking, the flame in the wick of the oil lamp swayed. At the same time, the young man with the mark of the peach blossom at the center of his brows shuddered violently. Flames immediately burned on his body. Those flames flowed like flowing water and gathered on the young man's hair, causing it to dance in the air. It looked as if flames were swaying. The mark of the peach blossom at the center of his brows instantly disappeared and turned into flames. Your body is the candle, and your life is the flame. You can leave. The young man's body immediately fell back against his will, and he instantly turned into a ball of flames that swept out of the hall, the desert, and the planet. When he reappeared, he was in the galaxy. Before him was a rotating vortex. As for the cultivation planet, it was slowly moving backwards until it disappeared into the vortex and became one of the countless planets in it. A person who is no longer in the cycle of reincarnation, a variable that was sent here through a special method. Why is it that I sensed its presence in your story? Damn it, that crane, who is going to sink into the sea of bitterness for all eternity, who is hated to the extreme, who wants to be killed millions upon millions of times, and who is doomed for all eternity. Once the young man was swept away, a low roar that was no longer ancient or cold came from within the hall. Instead, it was filled with hatred and madness. As that roar echoed in the air, the oil lamp on the table in the hall let out an intense burning sound. Countless faces appeared within it, causing the flame from the wick to instantly fill the entire hall. It spread out and instantly covered the entire cultivation planet, causing it to burn fiercely. Achoo! On a meteor charging forward in Western Ring Nebula was the bald crane, which was lying down lazily with sparkling eyes and holding a crystal in its claws with a pleased look on its face. At that moment, it sneezed 3 times in succession. Darn it all, someone must be talking about their grandpa crane. Ah, as a crane and as a bird, I have to keep a low profile. I can't always be remembered by others. Achoo! Before the bald crane could finish mumbling, it sneezed again. This time it was angry. It crawled up, and a fierce look appeared in its eyes as it looked around. Darn it all, who's talking about your grandpa crane? I'll kill you. When the bald crane's face was filled with anger, the Duke of Crimson Flame instinctively cast a glance at it from not too far away, then quickly lowered his head and no longer bothered with it. The more he felt that the bald crane was like the one in the legends, the more he did not dare to get involved with it. He remembered that all those who got involved with that person in the legends did not end up well. The meteor sliced through the galaxy. Under the Duke of Crimson Flame's protection and the bald crane's anger, the flames on Su Ming's body had already reached their most violent state. They burned every inch of his flesh and blood, regardless of whether he was inside or outside his body. His body had already withered up, and he looked like a withered piece of wood. Another half a month passed by. Su Ming's body did not move. His skin was covered in cracks, but he no longer seemed to have any flames on him. 7 days ago, the sea of fire around his body had tumbled backwards and crawled into his body. The presence of death grew stronger on Su Ming's body, and on one day, when the cracks on his body let out cracking sounds, the Duke of Crimson Flame immediately looked towards him with a grave expression. Even the bald crane's gaze fell on Su Ming. The cracked skin shattered piece by piece once again. At the same time, Su Ming slowly opened his eyes. The instant he opened his eyes, a faint golden light spread out from his pupils, causing his eyes to shine with a threatening light and an awe-inspiring might. As Su Ming opened his eyes, the cracking sounds on his body became even stronger. Cracks fell off one by one, eventually revealing his faint golden skin. When all the cracks fell off, Su Ming's body shone with a faint golden light that enveloped his entire body, making him look as if he was covered in a hazy glow. Su Ming let out a deep breath. The galaxy around him immediately started trembling, and a sea of fire appeared around the meteor. It burned with a loud whistle and spread out with a bang. In the blink of an eye, it covered a circular area of 50,000 feet. The presence of World Plane Realm erupted from within that area. This time, Su Ming did not use the rune, but used his physical body to execute the power of World Planes. World Plane Realm. Su Ming stood up from the meteor. Loud booming sounds came from his body, and when he clenched his fist, the sea of fire within 50,000 feet tumbled backwards. At the instant Su Ming clenched his fist, it was as if he had absorbed the entire sea of fire and gathered it on his palm. This is my own power. My physical body has become a paragon. Su Ming closed his eyes. When he opened them after a long while, a smile appeared at the corners of his lips. However, there was a hint of anguish in that smile. He remembered that if he had this level of cultivation when he was in the land of berserkers, then everything would have been different. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 898. You must search for another clone as soon as possible. It does not matter whether it is the 4 great true worlds or the 5th true world. There are not many who can become world paragons with their physical bodies, but it is not rare. More accurately speaking, there is no such thing as a physical body becoming a world paragon. In truth, you have not become a lord of a world plane. However, your physical body can withstand the divine abilities of those in the initial stage of world plane realm without being damaged. You can also use the power of world planes to make the power of your chi be equivalent to the divine abilities of a world paragon. However, you can only use the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole to devour the power of world planes in other people's bodies. In fact, once you become stronger, you can devour the essence of a planet. But this is not a long-term process. A true world paragon can obtain the acknowledgement of the essence of a world. When they obtain the acknowledgement of 10,000 worlds, a hint of plain Kulpa's presence will be born. This is the true Tao. Only when you become a world paragon can you step into this Tao. Your physical body is the support that will allow you to walk further down this path. Once you become a world paragon, with the help of this powerful physical body, you will truly be strong. It can be said that at that time, your foundation will be completely firm, and as you build up your strength, you will be able to become the strongest in that realm every single time you step into a new realm. The Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice as he looked at Su Ming, I suggest that you take over the body of a talented cultivator as your avatar. That way, not only will you have a second identity, but you'll also be able to use the talent of the person you've taken over to increase your cultivation speed. Abyss builders rely on clones to train and make themselves stronger. Each Abyss builder can form a different number of clones. When you reach the limit of the number of clones you can form and find your real self, you'll be able to execute one of the strongest divine abilities of the Abyss builders, the Abyss builder's transformation. With this art, all your clones will fuse into your real self, and you will be able to bring forth your strongest combat abilities. In my memories, there were not many Abyss builders who could execute the Abyss builder's transformation in the 5th true world, and there were differences in strength between them. As an outsider, I don't know the specifics, but I heard a rumor that the sovereign of the 5th true world, who is your Abyss builder's ancestor, could fight against one of the 4 true progenitors of the 4 great true worlds before he became a master of fate, lives, and death. Once he gathered all his clones together and executed the Abyss builder's transformation, he would not be at a disadvantage. When the Emperor reaches the realm of the Master of Fate, Lives, and Death, he activates the Nether building transformation and fights the 4 true ancestors alone. When the Duke of Crimson Flame said this, his tone became excited. Clearly, this was his pride as a member of the 5th true world. Su Ming looked at his fist, then slowly unfurled it. As he listened to the Duke of Crimson Flame's excited voice, his gaze fell on the galaxy in the distance. Even the powerful sovereign of the 5th true world, the ancestor of the Abyss builders, could not protect his own home, causing his own race to be on the verge of extinction. Could it be that the vast expanse's galaxy surpasses the realm of masters of fate, lives, and death, and can decide the lives and deaths of all manner of lives? In fact, they can even kill masters of fate, lives, and death. Su Ming stared at the galaxy, and for some unknown reason, this thought rose in his head. Compared to these people, I'm still as weak as an ant. Su Ming fell silent. After a moment, he asked in a low voice, "How many clones did my Abyss Builder's ancestor have?" "He had 6 great clones, and all of them were incredibly powerful." The Duke of Crimson Flame immediately answered. Su Ming did not speak anymore. He stared at the galaxy, and gradually, a powerful light shone in his eyes. An invisible, mighty pressure spread out from his body. The ripples of that mighty pressure symbolized that Su Ming's heart was also trembling violently at that moment. Even someone as strong as my ancestor could not protect his people and his home. There's a high possibility that he has already died. The 5th true world has become a broken world, and countless people have been suppressed and sealed. Just what reason was there for the 4 great true worlds to work together and fight against the 5th true world? Just what reason was there for them to completely destroy the 5th true world? And by the looks of it, their main target was the Abyss Builders. I've already had enough of being manipulated by fate. Tion and Death regions will in the past, and perhaps fate will continue to manipulate me in the future until I die. I don't want to be manipulated anymore. I want to control my own fate. I want my will to not be affected by anything. I want the people I want to protect to be forever safe. I want to become stronger. Become stronger. Only by continuously becoming stronger and surpassing my ancestor will I be able to truly protect the people in my home I want to protect. Only then can I be myself. The brilliant light in Su Ming's eyes grew brighter, and only after long while did it gradually disappear. It was hidden in his heart and turned into his desire. Su Ming averted his gaze from the galaxy, sat down cross-legged, and said calmly, "Let's go. We'll go to Blacking Planet." The meteors buzzed and charged into the depths of the galaxy. Several days later, Su Ming, who was meditating, suddenly opened his eyes. The Duke of Crimson Flame's voice also reached his mind at that moment. "Su Ming, there's a person coming towards us swiftly. By the looks of it, he doesn't seem to know where we are. He seems to have run into us by chance." Su Ming did not speak. He cast a glance at the galaxy before him, then closed his eyes once again. He was not a bloodthirsty person. With his personality, if no one provoked him, he would not attack. But if someone provoked him, then his callousness would turn into cold-bloodedness. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, a long arc charged towards them and instantly closed in on the meteor where Su Ming was. It did not stop, but instead moved past it. Within that long arc was a long-haired young man. He was dressed in a large purple robe, and there was a picture of a dragon embroidered on it with golden threads. That dragon picture looked like a word. "Zhao." Su Ming ignored this person and continued meditating with his eyes closed, but soon an incredibly arrogant divine sense swept through the area. When Su Ming frowned, the young man who was about to move past the meteor suddenly let out a soft gasp of surprise and moved backwards. When he maintained the same speed as the meteor, he swiftly looked towards Su Ming. When he looked over, confusion appeared on his face. As he shook his head, he quickly left, turning into a long arc that left the meteor and charged into the distance. There was a hint of hidden excitement in his eyes, along with wariness. As he charged forward, he immediately brought out a jade slip. "I actually ran into him. He recognized you and is about to crush the sound transmission jade slip to let others know where you are." The Duke of Crimson Flame's voice reached Su Ming's ears while he was on the meteor. "I know." Su Ming opened his eyes. If this person had just pretended not to know him and did not crush the jade slip, Su Ming would not have attacked. However, since this person had chosen to send a message, it meant that Su Ming had walked into a dead end. "Earthen script, turn into a grave," Su Ming said softly, and his body became indistinct before he disappeared without a trace. In the distance, the young man in purple robes was about to crush the jade slip when a strong sense of danger rose in his heart. His expression changed, and just as he was about to crush the jade slip without regard for anything else, boom, a ball of murky fog appeared around him. That fog instantly froze up and buried the young man within it. If anyone looked from the galaxy, They would be able to clearly see that a grave mound that looked like dirt had appeared where the young man was. Pieces of skin manifested on that mound and gathered together to form a tombstone. The face of the buried young man was swiftly outlined on that tombstone. Die! A flat voice echoed in the galaxy. Su Ming's body appeared on the meteor once again, and he spoke softly. Time trickled by, and in the blink of an eye, another half a month went by. A bloody stench surrounded the meteor, and it was stained with blood. During this half a month, Su Ming ran into 4 pursuits. The first time it was 2 people. The second time it was 3 people. The third time it was 6 people. The fourth time it was 11 people. Besides the first 2 times Su Ming attacked, he avoided the last 2 times. As he continued moving towards Black Ink Planet, Su Ming sensed an increasingly stronger sense of danger from the illusory projection. He noticed that there were more glowing spots coming towards him from all directions. Duke of Crimson Flame, your art that distorts time and space for 7 days should have been broken by someone, Su Ming said calmly. The Duke of Crimson Flame fell silent. He had also vaguely thought of this, or else it would be impossible to explain why the number of people chasing after their lives had increased during the past half a month. If I was the person who made the decisions for the 4 great true worlds, then my first step would be to break this art that distorts time and space for 7 days. My second step is that since the rune can be activated, then it is only natural that it can be deactivated as well. Since the enemy can use the rune, then I will deactivate it so that he won't be able to continue using it. Su Ming sat on the meteor and looked at the faint ripples in the projection before him. An increasing number of glowing spots were also flashing, as if the rune was becoming unstable. He spoke coldly. Then, when the art of 7 days is broken and the rune is deactivated, the true guards from the 4 great true worlds will appear in large numbers. I will use the shortest amount of time possible to lock down this region and carry out a massacre. Right when Su Ming finished speaking, the flickering of the projection before him became even more intense. In an instant, it became dull and disappeared before Su Ming's eyes. There was no surprise on Su Ming's face. Damn it! Darn it all! You shameless bastards! The bald crane was momentarily stunned by the side before it immediately roared in anger. Little boy Su, it's all over. It's all because of that mouth of yours. Good things never come true. Bad things always come true. This divinity incarceration rune, I can't sense it anymore. It's deactivated. Damn it, these people cut off my path to wealth. They're too shameless. I'll remember this. I'll remember this. I'll remember this. Sooner or later, I'll fight all of you to the death. The bald crane's heart was filled with grief. It was not because of the rune, but because once it was deactivated, it would no longer be able to extort Su Ming. It would no longer be able to trade with him. After all, as long as the rune was around, it was like a crystal tree to the bald crane. Every single time Su Ming used it, he would have to pay with crystals. 1,000 world stones and a cultivation planet that has been modified into a complete essence of a world. The ones who will be tempted by this are no longer lone cultivators, but families. Su Ming stared at the disappearing projection, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. He remembered the dragon-shaped Zhao character embroidered on the clothes of the purple-robed young man he had killed a few days ago. Due to the unique characteristics of the barren lands of divine essence, the criminals from the 4 great true worlds live and reproduce in this place. Over the course of countless years, forces of power that exist in the form of families have naturally appeared. To these families, a cultivation planet that has been modified is a temptation that surpasses that of world stones. 4 great true worlds, and these pursuers, since you're so determined to kill me, then don't blame me for going all out against all of you. Su Ming laughed coldly. A freezing glare shone in his eyes, and he stood up. Bald crane, do you want to take revenge on the 4 great true worlds? Su Ming looked towards the bald crane. The bald crane was currently filled with anger and pain. When it heard Su Ming's words, it immediately gritted its teeth and nodded fiercely. I can guarantee that there are no typos in my words. I've checked it a little more than usual. Please give me monthly votes. Please give me recommendation votes. To be continued. If you like this work, I welcome you to give me recommendation votes and monthly votes. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 899. It doesn't matter whether it's the true guard from the four great true worlds or these pursuers. They all want to kill me. Su Ming leaped up from the meteor. Crimson threads surrounded him out of thin air and turned into a coffin that instantly charged into the galaxy. The bald crane was put away by Su Ming. The Duke of Crimson Flame turned into a totem on the coffin and charged into the distance with the coffin. The crimson coffin traveled incredibly quickly, but the instant it left into the distance, a loud bang suddenly rang out in the galaxy. A deep blue ripple appeared and spread out rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it covered a circular area of 1,000,000 feet and caught up to the crimson coffin that was Su Ming. The deep blue ripple spread out in the galaxy and turned into fog that obscured the entire area. At the same time, Su Ming's crimson coffin looked as if it had sunk into a muddy river. Its speed instantly decreased by a large margin. The peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm. He's just one step away from the later stage. He came so quickly. You're not his opponent. The difference between the two of you is too great. If it wasn't because he didn't have enough power of world planes and the barren lands of divine essence, this powerful warrior could reach the later stage of World Plane Realm at any moment he wanted. No matter which galaxy he went to, he could be considered an overlord. The Duke of Crimson Flame's voice swiftly traveled into Su Ming's mind with anxiety in his voice. Almost at the same time his voice rang out, a cold harumph reverberated in the deep blue fog of 1,000,000 feet. It was just one cold harumph, but it caused the galaxy to rumble and cracks to appear. It also caused the red coffin that was Su Ming to tremble so much that it shattered. Boom! The coffin shattered and tumbled backwards, revealing Su Ming, who was charging forward. The shards swiftly gathered together to turn into a long red spear that disappeared into Su Ming's body with a flash. Blood trickled out of the corners of Su Ming's mouth. That invisible strike just now had not only shattered the coffin, it had also caused a huge force to appear out of nowhere in his body. As it erupted simultaneously, Su Ming was immediately injured. It was as if that cold harumph had formed a form of resonance that made it difficult for Su Ming to defend himself, and his body was instantly injured. Su Ming could also clearly sense that if it was not because his physical body had become a world paragon and was much stronger than before, then if he had not become a world paragon, his body would have crumbled like the coffin when he let out that cold harumph. He was strong. He was stronger than Jingnan Zi and the 9 true guards Su Ming had met in Heavenly Treasure Planet. This was the strongest person Su Ming had ever met while he was being chased. I've run into some in the middle stage of World Plane Realm, but none of them could injure me badly with just a cold harumph. Is this the power of those at the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm? They can completely suppress all the cultivators below World Plane Realm. Cultivators in heaven, earth, and man realm can't even fight back. It's like the difference between a baby and a man. Even if we're both in World Plane Realm, if we're only in the initial stage, we'll still be halved. Forget, if we want to fight, if we run, we'll just have halved. T want to be halved, won't want to die. Dao doubt have teat have su tiang realm teat. Teat have belonged to cheat teat su realm. No matter who came, it would make no difference. Besides, after the series of events that had happened previously, the people who came to kill Su Ming this time would be much stronger than before. If the Divinity Incarceration Rune was still around, then perhaps I could use its power to fight against this person. But now, I'm not his opponent. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He lifted his right foot and stomped down. Immediately, faint golden ripples appeared under his feet and spread out with a bang. In an instant, they covered a circular area of 50,000 feet, and the presence of World Plane Realm erupted from his body. How dare a firefly try to compete against the bright moon? As the cold and indifferent voice echoed in the area, The fog within the 1 million feet area immediately tumbled about and gathered together to form a face that was 1 million feet big. That face was ancient, and it belonged to an old man. The area covered by the dark blue fog was his entire face. From the distance, the 1 million feet face spread out in the galaxy, and it was an incredibly shocking sight. This was the power of those at the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm. His voice rumbled in the galaxy. Su Ming was at the spot near the center of the face's brows, and he was swiftly flying forward. If I kill you, you brat, I can let the Zhao family obtain a cultivation planet with an essence of a world. I, Zhao Tiangang, might not be willing to be controlled by the four great true worlds, but for the sake of my family members, I can only attack you. If you want to blame anyone after you die, then blame yourself for not being strong enough. At the instant buzzing sounds shook the galaxy, a glint appeared in the eyes of the gigantic face that covered the area of 1 million feet. I'm impressed that you're wanted by the four great true worlds. I'll let you die under my second strongest divine ability, and you'll have a worthy death. 3. At the instant Zhao Tiangang said these words, Su Ming's heart trembled, and the area of 50,000 feet around him immediately crumbled. I'm going to shift. You're not his opponent. If you don't shift now, you'll definitely die. The Duke of Crimson Flame's anxious voice reached Su Ming's mind. Wait a little longer. I want to see just how great is the difference between me and those in the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm. Su Ming's eyes sparkled, and he immediately sent these words in his heart. Are you mad? I can tell you this. The difference between the two of you is like the ravine between the sky and the earth. Before him, you're just an ant. Not only is this person a world paragon at the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm, judging by his words, he's also the progenitor of a family. This sort of person is definitely famous, and even the normal true guards from the four great true worlds might not be willing to provoke him. The Duke of Crimson Flame growled in anger. For the first time, he did not listen to Su Ming's words and was just about to shift and bring Su Ming away. The area of 50,000 feet around Su Ming was swiftly crumbling at that moment. In the blink of an eye, there was only an area of several thousands of feet left. The rest of the area was torn to pieces in a bizarre fashion when Zhao Tiangang said those three words. Even if it's the difference between the sky and the earth, even if I'm an ant, I must still dare to glare at the heavens. And even if I'm an ant, I must not run without fighting. As long as the difference between us isn't so great that it can instantly kill me, then I will definitely attack. Even if I'm weak, I will still draw my sword. Even if I'm not his opponent, I will still be unyielding. If I don't fight, then my thoughts will not be smooth. If I don't fight, then my thoughts will not be fulfilled. If I don't fight, then with what will I be able to cultivate solar Culpa realm? The area of several thousands of feet around Su Ming shattered, and only several hundreds of feet remained. However, his voice echoed in the Duke of Crimson Flame's heart, causing him to freeze just as he was about to shift. It was as if he was getting to know Su Ming for the first time. Su Ming's words echoed in his heart, and each word and sentence exuded a resolve that caused the Duke of Crimson Flame's heart to tremble. If I don't fight, then with what will I be able to cultivate solar Culpa realm? Su Ming threw his head back and roared. Immediately, an illusion of 10,000 feet appeared behind him. That was his statue of the god of berserkers. The god of berserkers' three barren lands of heaven, earth, and man, human barren. A brilliant light shone in Su Ming's eyes. He swung his arm, and the statue behind him immediately lifted its hands. Once it pressed its palms together, it opened them towards the galaxy. Earth barren. The area of several hundreds of feet around Su Ming crumbled at that moment. At the instant it shattered, the statue behind Su Ming lifted its right foot and stomped down. Heaven barren. Boom. Su Ming's statue of the god of berserkers shone with an endless amount of faint golden light at that moment. At the same time that light covered its entire body, the statue completed its stomping motion with its right foot, and its entire body swelled up once again. In an instant, it grew to 100,000 feet, and with a bang, it fell forward. The god of Berserker's art was executed with Su Ming's current level of cultivation. He fused it with his power of world planes. Human Baron was used to worship the universe, and Earth Baron was used to stomp on the land. Heaven Baron was used to collapse, and the sky collapsed to destroy the world. The god of Berserker's body was the sky. At that moment, when it fell, booming sounds surged into the sky. This was the sky collapsing. Boom, boom, boom. Violent sounds reverberated in all directions in the galaxy. At the instant Su Ming's statue of the god of Berserkers fell, Zhao Tiangang's cold voice traveled forth. Flower. The statue of the god of Berserkers crumbled with a bang. It was as if the sky had collapsed, and a destructive power erupted forth, causing the collapsing sky to crumble on its own before it could even fall. As the statue of the god of Berserkers crumbled, Su Ming coughed up blood. As his body tumbled backwards, he lifted his head and roared. He lifted his hands to form a seal, then flung them backwards. Immediately, 7 shadows appeared behind him. These 7 shadows were dressed in long black robes. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but there was an incredibly thick aura of death that instantly spread through the galaxy. 7 abyssal death seal. Earthen script grave. When the 7 black-robed shadows appeared and bowed simultaneously towards the galaxy, Su Ming's body instantly became indistinct. A lone grave manifested, and Zhao Tiangang's face was rapidly being drawn on the tombstone. Destroy. Zhao Tiangang's voice came from the 1,000,000 feet face. Boom! The shadows of the 7 abyssal shadows shattered, and the lone grave formed by Su Ming crumbled in an instant. The tombstone on it could not form Zhao Tiangang's face at all. Booming sounds came from Su Ming's entire body. His flesh and blood shattered inch by inch, and as he coughed up blood, he was gravely injured. However, there was no regret in his eyes, and there was also an incredibly bright light within them. He had lost. This was a battle that he would definitely lose in, but he had fought. He had the courage to fight. He had the courage to attack, even though he knew that he would definitely lose. He had to draw his sword. This was determination, and it was something that a powerful warrior must possess. In fact, it was the most important condition that surpassed potential and serendipity. Su Ming licked the blood at the corners of his mouth and shouted in his heart, Duke of Crimson Flame, shift go. World. This was the final word Zhao Tiangang said, and it was also the completed form for his secondary divine ability, 3 flowers to destroy the world. At the instant he said these words, the Duke of Crimson Flame immediately appeared beside Su Ming, who was still coughing up blood and tumbling backwards. The bald Duke of Crimson Flame swung his arm, and as booming sounds surged into the sky, ripples spread out violently. The picture of a flying dragon manifested, and as booming sounds continued ringing in the air, the picture crumbled. However, once it did so, the Duke of Crimson Flame brought Su Ming with him and activated his origin life to shift. Almost at the instant the Duke of Crimson Flame shifted, the region in the galaxy crumbled, stirring up booming sounds that spread in all directions. When it gradually calmed down, the 1,000,000 feet face disappeared, and an old man dressed in purple robes appeared in the galaxy. The old man's expression was dark as he stared at the spot where the Duke of Crimson Flame had disappeared with Su Ming. Even though he knew that he would definitely lose, he still dared to fight against me. This child is a determined person, and he's also a lunatic. But no matter what, fighting against powerful warriors is the best way for him to increase his level of cultivation swiftly and obtain epiphanies. The difference between us is the same as the difference between me and those in the later stage of World Plane Realm. If I run into those in the later stage of World Plane Realm, would I dare to fight against them? Zhao Tiangang fell silent. If he doesn't die in 10,000 years, he will definitely become a huge problem. If you like this work, please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 900. Zhao family's progenitor. It's Zhao family's progenitor, Zhao Tiangang. He's one of the three great families in Western Ring Nebula. It's rumored that this person reached the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm 2,000 years ago, and he's only one step away from the later stage of World Plane Realm. That one step is as far apart as 10,000 li's. In the beginning, the difference between world paragons isn't too great. Their offensive abilities in the initial stage of World Plane Realm are about the same. In fact, some of the powerful cultivators in Heaven Cultivation Realm can fight against those in the initial stage of World Plane Realm if they have some unique methods and enchanted treasures. But once their level of cultivation reaches the middle stage of World Plane Realm, their offensive abilities will increase exponentially. A powerful warrior in the middle stage of World Plane Realm can easily kill those in the initial stage of World Plane Realm. Even if those in Heaven Cultivation Realm have a heaven-defying enchanted treasure and can kill those in the initial stage of World Plane Realm, they won't be their opponent before those in the middle stage of World Plane Realm. That's right. We all understand this logic. Besides, there are also differences among those in the middle stage of World Plane Realm. Those in the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm can easily suppress other cultivators in the middle stage of World Plane Realm. Or else how could the Zhao family become so famous with just one Zhao Tiangang? Whooshing sounds mixed with whistling sounds came from all directions and turned into dozens of figures that landed in the area where Su Ming and Zhao family's progenitor had fought. These people had come after Mo Su. Due to the ripples of power in this place, once they rushed over, they saw Zhao family's progenitor staring into the distance silently, but they did not see Mo Su. It's a pity that Zhao family's progenitor beat them to it. That Mo Su might have already been killed or captured by Zhao family's progenitor. A cultivation planet with a complete essence of a world. This Zhao family will become even stronger in the future. In fact, there's a high possibility that Zhao family's progenitor will take that step and become an old monster in the later stage of World Plane Realm. But he's still at the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm. If he runs into those in the later stage of World Plane Realm, even if they're old monsters who have just reached it, they can completely suppress him. Unless he has a method to escape, he'll definitely die. It's a pity that there are only 3 old monsters in the later stage of World Plane Realm in Western Ring Nebula. Besides Li family's progenitor, who is always in isolation, the other 2 are training in some unknown place. It has been a long time since they showed themselves. More and more people rushed over, and after a while, there were nearly 100 people. These people's eyes flashed, and after glancing at Zhao Tiangang, they began to talk to each other. After a moment, a ripple came from the distant starry sky, and gradually, 9 gigantic ancient bronze swords appeared. A tremendous pressure spread out, causing the people in the area to retreat. The 9 swords slowly stopped moving. Old ancestor of the Zhao family. How did the battle go? A person walked out from the sword right in front of the group. That person was dressed in battle armor, and he was naturally the old man who had escaped after his battle against Su Ming in Heavenly Treasure Planet. The old man was also in the middle stage of World Plane Realm, but based on his words, it could be heard that he was rather polite to the old man from Zhao clan. He was not as aloof as he was to the other people from sinful barren lands. After all, although the environment and status were important, the foundation of a cultivator was still cultivation. The respect of the weak for the strong was a necessity in any era and any world. It was the foundation of the entire system of heaven and earth. Not to mention anything else, if he didn't unleash the power of the 9 ancient Qingtong swords, once the Zhao clan's ancestor went berserk, he could kill more than half of the true guards on the 9 swords. This kind of strength was the source of respect. He escaped. Zhao Tiangang sighed his heart. He was the person with the highest level of cultivation among the people who had chased after Su Ming this time. With his status and level of cultivation, his hatred towards the 4 great true worlds ran incredibly deep, but as time passed and his family continued to grow, this hatred was gradually hidden in his heart. For the sake of his family, He forced down his enmity towards the four great true worlds and temporarily obeyed orders to kill Su Ming. The moment his words appeared, the crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Almost all of them were shocked by Zhao Tiangang's words. They knew clearly in their hearts what it meant to be able to escape from Zhao clan's progenitor's hands. Zhao Tiangang did not want to say anything more. He swung his arm, and an illusion immediately appeared before him. There were countless pictures flashing within it, and they were the scenes of his fight against Su Ming. Once the entire process from the start to the end was shown before the crowd, Zhao clan's progenitor turned around and left without a single word. He had waited here just now because he wanted to give an explanation to the forces of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands. Now that he had done so, he did not want to stay any longer. As the people in the area stared fixedly at the illusory pictures, ripples appeared out of nowhere in the galaxy that was far away. As they spread out, Su Ming took a step out of the air. At the instant he did so, he coughed up blood. Was it worth it? You attacked even though you knew that you would definitely lose, and in return, you ended up being heavily injured. Was it worth it? The Duke of Crimson Flame manifested beside Su Ming. He looked at him with a slightly complicated expression. It was worth it. Su Ming wiped off the blood, and his eyes shone brilliantly. To me, my level of cultivation is like a mountain. There are plenty of mountains before me, and if I manage to step on one, it will be the same as my level of cultivation increasing by a realm. And my enemies are also these mountains. I can be stopped by mountains, and it doesn't matter even if I run into a mountain that I can't cross in my entire life. But if I don't even dare to try when I run into a mountain like this and feel that I'm a tiny ant because the mountain is too tall, then I won't even be able to take a step forward. Then how can I continue with my training? Su Ming looked at the Duke of Crimson Flame, and his calm words contained a resolve that caused the Duke of Crimson Flame's heart to tremble. After some time, the Duke of Crimson Flame suddenly asked, "If I wasn't by your side and couldn't shift you, what would you do?" "I would still do the same." Su Ming answered without any hesitation. "Since I will definitely die, then if I have to choose between closing my eyes and waiting for my death without fighting back or dying in a glorious battle, I will naturally choose the latter." Determination appeared on Su Ming's face. His voice might not have been loud, but when it landed in the Duke of Crimson Flame's ears, it made him fall silent. 10 breaths later, the Duke of Crimson Flame said, "What will you do next?" "I've already used one of my 2 shifts. I'll save the other for when you get close to Black Ink Planet. Then I'll bring you straight into Black Ink Planet. They've made things difficult for me, so I'll make things difficult for them as well." Su Ming brought out some medicinal cores and swallowed them. A freezing glare appeared in his eyes, along with a hint of madness. 3 days later, a shocking boom came from the cultivation planet closest to the spot Su Ming had shifted to. As it reverberated in space, the roars of ferocious beasts reverberated in space. The presences of these ferocious beasts were incredibly powerful, and some of them even flew out of the cultivation planet to roar in the galaxy. In fact, at the same time the seals on these ferocious beasts were broken, and they broke free, an excited roar echoed faintly from the depths of the planet. That roar was filled with madness and hatred, and it came from the mighty cultivator of the alien race who had been suppressing and sealing the planet. As the seal on the ferocious beast was broken, a scene similar to what had happened in Crimson Flame Planet unfolded on the cultivation planet. The destruction of the seal gave the mighty cultivator of the alien race a chance to break free from the seal. As for whether he would be able to escape in the end, that would depend on his serendipity. 7 days later, a similar boom came from another cultivation planet. At the same time it shook the galaxy, numerous ferocious beasts' roars spread in all directions. Several days later, a drastic change happened in the 3rd cultivation planet. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 2 months went by. During these 2 months, more than 10 cultivation planets underwent changes that made the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds enraged. An endless amount of ferocious beasts appeared in the galaxy, and the seals on cultivation planets were torn. The sealed alien races also showed signs of wanting to escape. If things continued developing in this manner, then several years later, the power of the alien races that could overturn everything would erupt in Western Ring Nebula. This was Su Ming's madness, and it was also the great gift he prepared to give to the forces of power from the four great true worlds, keeping a lookout over the barren lands. He would use this action to take revenge on the four great true worlds for hunting him down. The bald crane's excitement was even greater than Su Ming's. Its resentment towards the divinity incarceration rune could be said to be monstrous, and it completely agreed with Su Ming's plan. In fact, it even took the initiative to help Su Ming, which was a rare sight. Boom! Another cultivation planet let out a loud bang. A large part of the seal on it shattered, and ferocious beasts flew out. As they roared in the galaxy, a crimson coffin flew up from the planet and left into the distance. The coffin might have been destroyed by Zhao family's progenitor in the past, but its core had not been damaged, which was why it could still turn into a coffin and charge through the galaxy. Darn it all! Darn it all! How dare you people from the true world provoke me? I'll fight against you. I'll break it. I'll break it. I'll break it. I'll break all the seals. I'll let you four great true worlds know the consequences of provoking your grandpa Crane. Haha, I'm not that easy to bully. Luya was driven mad by me in the past, and the four great true progenitors are nothing. In the end, they were still treated as nothing but birds by me. Huh, am I really that powerful? The bald crane's excited roars gradually spread out as the coffin left into the distance. Kill him. Kill that person called Mo Su. It doesn't matter how he came to the barren lands of divine essence. He crossed our bottom line. He must die. An enraged voice came from the place where true sacred world was stationed, one of the forces of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands. It would have been fine if he was in another galaxy, but he actually broke the seals on 13 cultivation planets in the region under the surveillance of true sacred world. He's provoking us. He's taking revenge on us for placing a bounty on his head. The main camp is already displeased and has sent an order. If we can't solve this problem within a month, then all the true guards from true sacred world will have to pay the price for this. The Culpa Lord has sent an order to bestow a treasure as a reward. This time, all the true guards from true sacred world will attack. They are allowed to shift using their origin of essence. 2 sect elders in Lunar Culpa realm will also attack. We must solve this matter within a month. Gigantic, ancient bronze swords shot out of the great space, sealing rune from the galaxy, where true sacred world was stationed, and appeared in Western Ring Nebula. When Fong Yen looked over, he found that there was no end to them. Each of the swords was 100,000 feet long, and there were hundreds of them. The galaxy roared. There is also an additional reward that was announced to all of Western Ring Nebula, attracting the attention and greed of the true guard from the other galaxies and even the other true worlds. Those who kill Mo Su will be rewarded by true sacred world, a Culpa treasure that possesses the presence of Solar Culpa realm. If you like this work, please come to Start Point and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 901. Tribulation Treasure. This sort of treasure was not common even in the 4 great true worlds. Most of them were in the hands of old monsters who possessed the power of plain Culpa realm. Its value was difficult to describe with words, and it could be said that to the powerful warriors in Lunar Culpa realm, this sort of treasure was enough to stir up a massacre. Treasures at the level of Culpa treasures were rarely created by people. Most of them were born on their own in the vast galaxy, and they were existences that were like treasures of the universe. That was why each Culpa treasure was different, and there were differences in the power of their divine abilities as well. However, even the weakest Culpa treasure could cause a huge difference in power between 2 monsters in Lunar Culpa realm who were in the same realm. If a person in Lunar Culpa realm did not have a Culpa treasure in hand, then he would not be the opponent of someone in the same realm who had one. Only those in Lunar Culpa realm who had Culpa treasures could be called half a step into Solar Culpa realm. Forget about the barren lands of divine essence. A treasure of this level would cause a ruckus even in the world outside. In the barren lands of divine essence, it was enough to stir up a disaster. It could tempt the old monsters in lunar Culpa realm, who rarely ventured out of the barren lands of divine essence. It could make the powerful warriors in the later stage of world plane realm go red with desire. In fact, to the true guards, this treasure could also make them go mad. If they killed Mo-Su, they would be able to obtain the Culpa treasure. The additional reward for this treasure instantly surpassed that of the World Stone and the Cultivation Planet. It became the most eye-catching light in the entire Western Ring Nebula, and it made countless people descend into a frenzy. The other 3 galaxies were also stimulated by this news. All those who believed that they had hope put down what they were doing and walked out of their isolation grounds to charge towards Western Ring Nebula at full speed. In Western Ring Nebula was a region filled with dust. Dazzling light would occasionally shine in that place, but not a single sound could be heard. From a distance, it looked like a wasteland with countless shattered stones floating in the air. Soon after, a long arc charged over from the distance. After a moment, it closed in and turned into an old man dressed in a long, dark blue robe. That old man had a head full of white hair, but his eyes shone brilliantly. The presence of world plane realm spread out from him, and he was a world paragon in the middle stage. He respectfully stood outside the ruins, cupped his fists, and bowed deeply. Disciple requests to see Master. The old man's voice was loud and clear. As it spread through the area, the shattered stones before him suddenly moved and were instantly sucked together to form. A gigantic face formed from countless shattered stones. It could be vaguely seen that this face belonged to a middle-aged man. He had a dignified appearance, and his closed eyes were slowly opening. What is it? Thunderous rumbles spread out in all directions, setting off layers of ripples that caused the starry sky to tremble. All the power of laws in the area disappeared in an instant. Master, the 4 great true worlds used Culpa treasures to place a bounty on a person's head. The old man lowered his head with an incredibly respectful expression on his face. He knew clearly just how strong his master was. He was one of the 3 strongest people in the entire Western Ring Nebula, which was why even if he was already in the middle stage of World Plane Realm, when he faced his master, his heart still trembled in fear. Culpa treasure. The eyes of the face formed by shattered stones suddenly shone, and a brilliant light shone in them. At the same time, on a seemingly normal cultivation planet in Western Ring Nebula was an old man dressed in rags and looking as pathetic as a beggar. He was lying on his stomach in a forest that had mostly withered away. There were a few cultivators by his side, and the strongest among them were only in Earth Cultivation Realm. In fact, there were quite a number of them who were only in Man Cultivation Realm. At that moment, they were carefully staring at a ferocious beast that looked like a tiger about several thousands of feet away from them. Judging from its presence, that ferocious beast was equivalent to those at the peak of Earth Cultivation Realm. On the ground behind it was a 3-colored flower that was blooming, and wisps of a delicate fragrance were spreading out from it. It continued growling and observing its surroundings with an incredibly solemn expression, but at that moment, as the petals of the 3-colored flower fell from its body, whistling sounds came from all directions. 40-something cultivators rushed out from the forest and charged towards the ferocious tiger. The old man was among them, and he was the most arrogant of them all. "Kill it! Damn it! Kill this tiger, and the treasure will be ours." The old man's eyes shone, and as he roared, he rushed out. The ferocious tiger roared furiously, and a chaotic battle instantly broke out. But before long, the old man let out a shrill scream of pain. A deep claw mark appeared on his body, and his organs looked as if they were about to be dug out. When he fell to the ground, he did not forget to say something as he screamed. "Ah, I'm dead." The old man who fell to the ground blinked a few breaths later. When he saw that the tiger was roaring nonstop in its madness and fighting to the death against the crowd, he crawled forward carefully, wanting to get closer to the 3-colored flower. He was very fast, and he seemed to be very familiar with this method. Clearly, he had done this many times before. But just as he arrived beside the three-colored flower, someone suddenly roared furiously in the sky. Which side does this old man belong to? He's actually pretending to be dead to steal the three-colored flower. He's not on our side. Damn it. Forget about the tiger for now. Let's deal with that old thief first. He's not on our side either. Angry roars came from the sky, and quite a few people circled around the ferocious tiger to charge toward the ground. At the same time, the old man grabbed the three-colored flower with a nervous look on his face. He quickly climbed to his feet and ran away without a care for anything else. Behind him, the light of magical treasures whistled through the air, and divine abilities closed in. The old man's face was filled with excitement, but just as he was about to run, he suddenly frowned and took out a jade slip from his bosom. He examined it as he ran, but as soon as he did, his eyes suddenly shone brightly, and he stopped. Almost at the instant he stopped, numerous magical treasures and divine abilities closed in on him at the same time. A loud bang reverberated in the air, but the old man still stood where he was, not moving an inch. However, all of the magical treasures that were charging at him were reduced to ashes. As for the divine abilities, all of them were destroyed. Culpa treasure. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly. Once he put away the jade slip, he placed the three-colored flower in his mouth and took a big bite out of it before tossing on the ground. He turned his head around and cast a fierce glare at the cultivators who had been stunned by the scene just now. What bullsh asterisk T tricolor grass? I'm one of the three great powerful warriors in the later stage of World Plane Realm in Western Ring Nebula. So what if I snatched it? Bah, doesn't taste good either. The old man spat a few mouthfuls of saliva on the ground, then charged into the sky and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, there were 7 cultivation planets that had been forcefully shifted to another region in Western Ring Nebula's galaxy. These 7 cultivation planets might have been abandoned, but they surrounded the area, and the intimidating presence they formed was the strongest in all of Western Ring Nebula. All the cultivators with the slightest bit of knowledge would think of the strongest family in Western Ring Nebula when they saw these 7 cultivation planets. Leaf family. Leaf family's progenitor, Yuan Hua, was in the later stage of World Plane Realm. He intimidated everyone, causing the Leaf family to be famous in Western Ring Nebula, and they could be said to be the overlords. It was rumored that Leaf family's progenitor had a beard that was 30 feet long, and he had refined it into an enchanted treasure. There were countless people who had died under his long beard, and with a bloody reputation, he built up the Leaf family's family. Besides the members of the Leaf family, all the others living in the 7 cultivation planets were dependent on the Leaf family. They relied on the Leaf family's protection and obeyed its orders. At that moment, there was a lake in a tall mountain on the 7th cultivation planet. The lake was incredibly clear, and it was an incredibly rare sight in the barren lands of divine essence. There was a wooden house by the lake, and there was a middle-aged man standing outside it. He had his head lowered, and there was a zealous look on his face that was filled with respect. This is what happened. The 4 great true worlds brought out a culpa treasure as a reward. I understand. You can leave now. After a moment, a gentle voice came from the wooden house. The zealous look on the middle-aged man's face grew stronger, and he bowed before he left. Culpa treasure. This sort of treasure will definitely attract the interest of Tian Huangzi, who is always willing to get involved with small cultivators and has no hint of the attitude of a powerful warrior. Even Shi Shunzi will definitely be incredibly passionate about this. But, culpa treasure, this junior called Mo Su can make the 4 great true worlds bring out a culpa treasure, so we can't underestimate him. The gentle voice spread out slowly and gradually calmed down. The entire Western Ring Nebula had descended into a frenzy because of the reward for the culpa treasure. Countless long arcs charged through the galaxy, and all the people were doing their best to search for Mo Su. There would even be people charging through the borders of Western Ring Nebula from other galaxies to join the chase. In the starry sky, 3 more dragons were flying forward. Behind the 3 dragons were black ships. Many black-armored cultivators were seated cross-legged on the ships. All of them had their eyes closed as they meditated, not moving in the slightest. Standing at the head of the huge dragon was a young man dressed in a sacred constellation robe. By his side was a person dressed in white. That person's face was as white as jade, but he was incredibly aloof. He looked like a sharp sword that had been drawn out of its sheath, and there was an extraordinary air about him in his calm demeanor. Yi Wang, if you choose to become my follower, then I will do everything in my power to help you kill Mo Su and obtain that culpa treasure. In the future, I will definitely make your immortal sect the strongest among the immortals. There's no need. The young man in white was naturally Yi Wang. Once he said those words flatly, he closed his eyes to hide the strange light that had shone briefly in them when he heard Mo Su's name. Mo Su, what a familiar name. Is it you or not? If it's not, then so be it. But if it's really you, then no matter how you came here, the battle between us is not ended. Over the years, you're the only person who can fight to a draw with me. You are the only opponent who can make me remember you to this day. You cannot die, because the only one who has the right to kill you is me, Yi Wang. Yi Wang closed his eyes and thought quietly in his heart. At the same time, Zilong Shun, who was sitting and meditating on the hundreds of ancient bronze swords in Western Ring Nebula, looked at the galaxy in the distance, and Mo Su's name appeared in his mind. He was not the only one. By his side, Li Hua's expression was calm, but a figure had appeared in his heart. It was a young man called Mo Su. Is it you? Li Hua shook his head. The two of them did not notice that Ji and Hai, who was on the other side of them, was currently trembling lightly. The further they went, the more he could feel that there was a weak calling in the starry sky that was invisibly affecting him. Mo Su, Su Ming, in the past, you didn't have the ability to discover that I still had a wisp of my divine sense. You refined my body into your clone and became my master. Now, I didn't expect that we would meet here. Then, we'll have to change our identities. A freezing glare shone in Ji Yunhai's eyes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 902. At the very front of the hundreds of ancient swords from true Sacredine world were 3 large bronze swords that were arranged in a triangular formation. There was a person standing at the tip of each sword. The person in the middle had the mark of a flame at the center of his brows. He was dressed in a long red robe, and he was naturally the 9th-tier True Guard Dao Run who had been given a hint of Huazhu's power when he went to the main camp. His eyes shone brilliantly. There were no flames spreading out from his body, but the area where he stood was incredibly hot. In fact, even the large sword under his feet was slowly melting. Mo Su. Daora narrowed his eyes, and a hint of killing intent appeared in them. It was this Mo Su who had caused true Sacredine world to be utterly humiliated and even caused the main camp to be displeased. If they could not solve this problem within a month, then all the true guards would have to be punished. By his sides were the people standing at the tips of the other 2 ancient bronze swords in the triangular formation. At that moment, they were sitting cross-legged and meditating. One of them was an old man, and the other was a short boy. Not a single ripple of power spread out from their bodies. But if anyone took a closer look, they would find to their shock that there was not a hint of the laws of the world around them. It was as if there was nothing around them, as if even the galaxy had to avoid them. Daorin turned his head around and looked at the boy on the ancient sword to his right before he asked calmly, Senior Han Tongzi, how much longer will you need before you can locate Mo Su? He might be at the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm, just like Zhao family's progenitor based on the presence spreading out from his body, but there was not a hint of respect in his tone when he spoke to the boy. Instead, he spoke as equals. In the past, he would definitely not have done this, but it was different now because he was no longer a true guard. He had a status that stood above all true guards, Huazhu's envoy. The boy opened his eyes, and his gaze fell on Dao Run before he said calmly, I'll need 4 more hours before I can locate him. 4 more hours. Mo Su, with just 4 more hours, I'll make it impossible for you to escape. Killing intent shone in Dao Ren's eyes. At that moment, Su Ming was sitting on the Crimson Coffin in Western Ring Nebula. He was charging away from a cultivation planet. The cultivation planet behind him was still reverberating in the air. Waves of murderous aura erupted from it, and ferocious beasts flew out of the planet. Illo. The bald crane started howling excitedly by the side. It had been incredibly excited over the past few days. Every single time it opened the seal on a cultivation planet, it would feel that it had taken revenge on the four great true worlds, and this feeling made it fall in love with its actions. Su Ming, where should we go next? We have to open all the seals in the barren lands of divine essence and make the four great true worlds angry. The angrier they are, the more trouble they will be in, and the happier I will be. The bald crane was so excited that its entire body trembled, and it looked at Su Ming expectantly, offering a bounty of tribulation treasures to hunt me down. Su Ming ignored the bald crane. His expression was incredibly dark. When he left the cultivation planet, he had learned that the four great true worlds had increased the bounty on his head. Su Ming, we can't continue. We have to leave immediately. The further we go, the better. I didn't expect that the four great true worlds would bring out a culpa treasure as a reward. The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at Su Ming with an anxious expression. What is a culpa treasure? Su Ming asked. Once the Duke of Crimson Flame finished his explanation, Su Ming's expression turned even darker. He instinctively clenched his fists. Even the bald crane by his side stopped making a ruckus. Clearly, it was also shocked by the four great true worlds' actions. You really think too highly of me. Even I am tempted by a culpa treasure. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. Thoughts raced in his head, but no matter what, he could not find a way to solve this series of dangers. Right from the start, this was destined to be a disaster of death. If the four great true worlds wanted to kill a person, then forget him. Even an old monster in the later stage of World Plane Realm would find it difficult to escape death. The only way was to head to Black Ink Planet. That was the place where the forces of power from the four great true worlds were the weakest. Once they stepped into Divine Essence Star Ocean through Black Ink Planet, the four great true worlds would not be able to chase after them. As time passed, the matter would naturally be left unsettled. However, Black Ink Planet was too far away, and they would not be able to reach it within a short period of time. This meant that their only path of survival was sealed. During this period of time, Su Ming had also tried to step into the dimension in the black stone fragment that had fused into his soul. He could fuse with it, but his body could not. Only his soul could. If he was truly forced into a corner and chose this method, it would be the same as Su Ming giving up on his physical body, and he would have to start from the beginning. This method could not perfectly solve this disaster of death. He would eventually appear, and once he did, he would not have a physical body and would only have a soul. He would not have any power to fight back. Besides, Su Ming did not want to be forced to give up on his physical body and his cultivation base. In silence, the Crimson Coffin charged through the galaxy. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and resolution appeared in them. Oh well, with my level of cultivation, there's no way I can survive this disaster of death. Besides, I don't need to hide in the dimension in the stone fragment for a long period of time. I refuse to believe that the four great true worlds will permanently shut down the divinity incarceration rune in the barren lands of divine essence. As long as the rune is activated and the divinity incarceration rune is activated, then I can use the power of the rune to warp away. The seal won't be able to trap me in the slightest. And at most a year, or even a few months, the rune will definitely be activated again, or else it will be impossible for them to give up on the divinity incarceration rune in the barren lands of divine essence for me alone. If that's the case, then I only need to hide for a period of time. During this period of time, as long as my physical body is safe, then I won't be harmed in the slightest. It's a pity that I tried before, but besides my soul, I couldn't even bring my storage bag into the dimension in the stone fragment. It wasn't like this in Death region. Perhaps it's because of the strangeness of the barren lands of divine essence. Huh. Once Su Ming shook his head, a glint appeared in his eyes. The crimson coffin's speed instantly increased exponentially, and it changed its direction to charge towards the cultivation planet he had left previously. Most of the seal on this cultivation planet has been broken, so only someone will come to suppress the seal again. But there should be very few people who will think that I haven't left and will instead remain in this cultivation planet. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. After a moment, the crimson coffin under him rushed into the cultivation planet and broke through the layer of high wind. It did not descend, but disappeared without a trace. There were countless barren mountains on this cultivation planet, and there was quite a large amount of swamps and mud among them. At that moment, Su Ming was sitting cross-legged outside one of the swamps. He had carefully chosen quite a number of spots, and in the end, he chose this place. This place was not remote, and cultivators from this planet would often come to this place because there was a strange spirit herb growing in this region. It contained a small hint of spiritual energy, and while it might not be much, it was enough to attract the cultivators from this planet to search for it. Once my presence disappears, Baldy, you have to protect my physical body. Don't go out. Hide in the swamps and wait for me. Duke of Crimson Flame, I'll leave this place to you. I'll appear half a year later, and if my presence is gone, just as Su Ming was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed. At the instant his expression changed, the Duke of Crimson Flame lifted his head to look at the sky, and his expression changed drastically. Don't enter this soul-hiding treasure. Damn it, this is the Eye of Solar Culpa. The Duke of Crimson Flame immediately said anxiously. At the same time, the sky was originally dark, but at that instant, it disappeared and turned into darkness. As black snowflakes floated down, the sky was instantly dyed white. Within the pale light, an illusory black sun suddenly appeared. It was an illusion because this was not the real Eye of Solar Culpa. This was the illusory sun of lunar Culpa realm, or rather, it was the moon. Once this illusory black sun that looked like a moon and a sun appeared in the sky, the black snowflakes in the world scattered, and during that instant, an eye appeared in the black sun. It was an eye that contained wisdom and an ancient air. At the instant it appeared, the countless black snowflakes floating down from the sky also manifested eyes. Each snowflake was an eye, lunar Culpa realm, and it's not just one Eye of Solar Culpa realm either. Only two people can use it at the same time, and only those who possess powerful Culpa treasures can bring out the long-distance Eye of Solar Culpa. They can lock down all the areas they see. Su Ming, hurry up and give up on hiding your physical body. I don't know what methods you have to hide your soul, but if you're confident, then you can hide your soul. Hurry. Don't bother about us. Your physical body, me, and we can't escape from him. You are the hope of our people. You must remember to promise me that once you find our life flag, and once you have the power to build Abyss Realm, you must revive our people. Don't cling to your physical body anymore. Even if you can shift and leave, it's useless. With the Eye of Solar Culpa, no matter where we flee to, it will be able to instantly lock down on us again. Before I die, I will use the remaining power of shifting to detonate my divine sense and help you hide your soul. Su Ming, take care. The Duke of Crimson Flame was practically roaring. At that moment, booming sounds reverberated in the sky. An endless amount of snowflakes danced in the air, and waves of powerful presences descended. Cracking sounds came from all directions in the world, and it could be clearly seen that all the regions in the area had frozen up as if they had been frozen. This scene became even clearer in the galaxy. At the same time the galaxy turned into a layer of ice, ancient bronze swords shifted. Figures appeared in flashes, and booming sounds that surged into the sky reverberated in the region belonging to the forces of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the galaxy. Countless ripples spread out and formed a wave of impact. As they reverberated in the air, an incomparably gigantic radix planet slowly flew out from Sacred Planet's region. This was the second time a radix planet had moved over the countless years. The first time was the change in black ink planet. At the instant the radix planet appeared, it immediately turned into an illusion and became indistinct before disappearing without a trace. At the same time, the galaxy beyond the cultivation planet where Su Ming was roared. As the area around him was frozen, the space in a region was forcefully torn apart, and the radix planet descended. This gigantic celestial body, formed by an endless amount of planets that looked like a distorted staircase, was swiftly revealing itself at that moment. Half of it had already appeared, and a powerful sealing power instantly spread out. This was a preparation made by the true guards of Serene planet to prevent Su Ming from shifting. Once the complete radix planet appeared, the sealing power would be perfect, and all those below Solar Culpa realm would not be able to shift even a single inch of it. Su Ming had to first locate Su Ming and have the radix planet descend to seal his movements. By doing so, he would not have to worry about him escaping. Su Ming, what are you still thinking about? Hurry up! I can sense that the war radix planet from the 4 great true worlds has already appeared. The sky distorted, and the shadow of a huge sword appeared along with an endless amount of long arcs. The Duke of Crimson Flame roared. Just as he was about to rush out, a hint of madness suddenly appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Duke of Crimson Flame, shift me at full speed. There was madness in Su Ming's eyes, but his voice was terrifyingly calm. What? The Duke of Crimson Flame turned his head around swiftly. With an anxious look on his face, he was just about to speak. Shift. Western Ring Nebula's foreign land. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 903. Most of the radix planet had descended, and the hundreds of ancient bronze swords surrounded the galaxy. Long arcs howled in the sky above the cultivation planet. The inescapable net was about to be formed. This time, all the true guard from true sacred Een world stationed in the barren lands of divine essence had been mobilized, and they had even invited the 2 true guards in Lunar Culpa realm. Clearly, their desire to kill Su Ming had already reached an incredibly strong state. There are 10 more breaths before the radix planet will completely descend. 10 breaths later, even if you can shift, you won't be able to use it. There was an ancient bronze sword that was clearly much larger in the galaxy, and Dao Run, who had the mark of fire at the center of his brows, stood at the tip of the sword. Invisible flames spread out from his entire body as he stared at the cultivation planet not too far away. Even if you choose to shift now, you won't be able to change the outcome. No matter where you shift to, we'll be able to instantly catch up to you. Darren smiled coldly. The galaxy was frozen. As cracking sounds spread out violently, the Duke of Crimson Flame gritted his teeth when he heard the resolute tone in Su Ming's calm voice. He no longer spoke, but instead threw his head back and roared. Ripples spread out madly from his body. Those ripples swept out in all directions and enveloped Su Ming and the bald crane. At the instant, the endless long arcs in the sky closed in on them. Violent, booming sounds came from the space around them. At the instant they shook the sky and earth, the radix planet descended, and the inescapable net was about to be formed. The Duke of Crimson Flame disappeared. In the blink of an eye, Su Ming and the bald crane fused into the ripples and shifted away. Su Ming's disappearance did not cause the true guard's expressions to change in the slightest. It was as if they had expected this since a long time ago. Almost at the instant Su Ming shifted away, the radix planet completely descended in the galaxy. Waves of powerful light swept through the area, and all the true guards and the ancient bronze swords disappeared at that instant. There was no longer a single true guard within or around the cultivation planet. It was as if everything that had happened previously was just an illusion. There was a unique place in Western Ring Nebula. There were countless cracks in space there, and cold wind blew out of them all year long. The wind moaned, and since there were many cracks, when the wind surrounded the place, it would distort and blur anyone's vision. The wind in this place was not strong. In fact, As long as a cultivator in Earth Realm was a little more careful, they would be able to remain safe in this wind. However, this region that seemed to be free of danger was one of the foreign lands that made all the cultivators in Western Ring Nebula and even the entire barren lands of divine essence stop in their tracks. There were very few who dared to enter it. Western Ring Nebula's foreign land. The wind here was not dangerous, because this was just the entrance. All the entrances to foreign lands were not too dangerous. But once he stepped into any one of those cracks, danger would befall him. All of these cracks possessed the power of teleportation. Any living being that stepped into them would be instantly teleported to the foreign land. The real danger would become a nightmare after being teleported to a foreign land. At that moment, ripples appeared out of nowhere in the galaxy in this region. As they spread out violently, Su Ming's figure manifested within them. He was the only one there. The bald crane and the Duke of Crimson Flame were not there. The bald crane was put away by Su Ming. The Duke of Crimson Flame had used up all his strength during the shift and fell into deep sleep. After all, this shift was different from the previous ones. He had activated it while the Eye of Solar Culpa Realm had locked onto him, and the amount of power he had used up was much greater. The sleeping Duke of Crimson Flame turned into a totem and branded itself on Su Ming's right arm. There was a hint of life in it, and it would need some time to rest before it could recover. The moment Su Ming appeared, he took a step towards the foreign land in front of him without any hesitation. He moved like an arc and charged forward. Almost at the instant Su Ming appeared and charged forward, the galaxy around the spot where he had just appeared suddenly roared violently. As the booming sounds reverberated in space, a gigantic outline appeared in the galaxy. It looked like a distorted staircase, and it was naturally the Radix planet. Once it locked onto Su Ming, no matter where he was, it could instantly shift and chase after him. At the same time the Radix planet appeared, gigantic ancient bronze swords manifested in the galaxy beyond the foreign land. There were hundreds of them, and they appeared at the same time. There were also countless long arcs that appeared in the area. Foreign land. This is Western Ring Nebula's foreign land. Damn it, he actually shifted to this place? What is he doing? He knows that he'll definitely die. That's why he wants to barge into the foreign land to search for a chance of survival. Foreign land. At the same time the ancient bronze swords appeared, the countless true guards on them stood up simultaneously. Just as they were about to step off the swords, they saw their surroundings clearly, and they also saw Su Ming charging forward in the distance. Zhe Longshun was also in the crowd. He stared at Su Ming before him, and a strange light shone in his eyes. By his side, a complicated look appeared in Li Hua's eyes. Ji Yanhai's pupils shrank. The faint calling to him had become incredibly strong at that instant, causing him to almost lose control of his body and charge forward without realizing it. Once the true, sacred Yin guards appeared, the ripples in the galaxy spread out violently. A black sun manifested in the galaxy, and with a glint in its eye, it stared at Su Ming. Su Ming's footsteps came to a halt. He turned around swiftly and looked at the hundreds of gigantic ancient swords, the even larger Radix planet, and the numerous cultivators from the True Guards. At that moment, he had already charged into the wind in this place. In fact, there was a crack in space less than 30 feet behind him. Waves of suction force that was not very strong spread out, allowing Su Ming to clearly understand that these cracks were the entrances to the foreign land. He finally saw the three people standing on the three swords right in front of the group. He saw the boy and another powerful warrior who did not have any ripples of power, but who made Su Ming's eyes sting with pain when he looked at them. Su Ming had seen the invisible, mighty pressure spreading out from these two people before. The three souls sealed in his body when he was in Yin Death region were also people of this realm. These were terrifying existences in Lunar Culpa realm. The two of them stood there, and the galaxy around them looked as if it had stopped rotating. This was a power that made Su Ming's heart tremble. Besides these two people, there was also the young man with the totem of fire at the center of his brows, standing on the sword in the center. When a young man looked at Su Ming, there was a powerful killing intent in his eyes. Su Ming only met his gaze, and an endless amount of heat immediately rose from his body. With these three people in the lead, there were tens of thousands of true guard around them. When Su Ming saw so many people coming to kill him, a smile appeared on his face. That smile gradually grew wider, and eventually, he started laughing loudly. He was laughing because he saw that none of the true guards dared to step into the region where there was only wind and no danger. He saw the two powerful warriors who made Su Ming's heart tremble when he looked at them, and even their cultivation bases froze up, as well as the young man with the totem of fire at the center of his brows, were frowning tightly. Because he could also sense that not only did all the people, including these three people, not dare to step into this place, even the ripples of their cultivation bases were trying their best to not get close to the region of the foreign land. Instead, they were reverberating in the periphery. He also saw Zhe Longshun and Li Hua, who had complicated expressions on their faces, as well as Ji Yunhai, who was glaring at him from the side. This scene let Su Ming know that he had made the right bet. Shifting to the foreign land was a huge gamble, and he had no choice but to take it. Even if he could hide in the dimension in the fragment when he was in the cultivation planet just now, his physical body would definitely be destroyed, the Duke of Crimson Flame would definitely die, and no matter how mysterious the bald crane was, it would still not be able to escape from this disaster. Even if Su Ming was already merciless, he still could not do this to his companions. Besides, even if he hid his soul, it would still be difficult for him to escape being suppressed and sealed. It would be difficult for him to walk out of the dimension in a fragment for the rest of his life. Once he did, he would still die. If that was the case, then he might as well take a gamble. He would go to the foreign land that would make people's expressions change when they talked about it, and fight for a slim chance of survival. This was his choice. As Su Ming laughed, all the true guards outside the foreign land fell silent. You people from true, sacredine world of the four great true worlds have chased after me multiple times, and all I see is you. If I don't die after entering the foreign land, then one day, I will definitely repay you for this. There was an endless chill in Su Ming's laughter, and he took a few steps back to stand at the edge of the crack. If you have the courage, then you can continue chasing me into the foreign land and continue chasing after me. Killing intent appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He remembered all the faces of these people, especially the three strongest berserkers. At the instant he said those words, Su Ming took a step back and stepped into the crack. Entering the foreign land is the same as stepping into hell. Forget you. Even those in Solar Culpa realm rarely survive. If you don't want to die in our hands, then it's not impossible for you to enter the foreign land and commit suicide. The person who spoke was Dao Run. He stared at Su Ming and said flatly. Su Ming heard these words, but he did not speak. Before he was relocated and disappeared, he cast Dao Ren a deep look, and that look caused Dao Ren's heart to tremble. He saw a determination that he had never seen in anyone else before in Su Ming's eyes. That gaze strongly conveyed a message that Su Ming did not say out loud. I will definitely return. Su Ming's body disappeared swiftly. The crack was like a gaping mouth. Once it devoured him, it looked as if it was mocking the crowd, but also as if it was waiting for more people to come. Time passed. Dao Ren clenched his fists, and a freezing glare appeared in his eyes. Once he steps into the foreign land, that child will definitely die. There's no need to continue placing a bounty on his head. There's no possibility for him to come out alive. No one has managed to obtain this bounty, but in the end, this matter has been resolved. It could be considered as us giving our main camp an answer. Ripples spread out in the galaxy, and gradually, the hundreds of swords and the countless true guards gradually disappeared along with the Radix planet in the midst of their sentimental and silence. Even when they completely disappeared, there were quite a number of true guards who still remembered Su Ming's gaze before he disappeared. That gaze remained in their minds and refused to disappear even after a long time had passed. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 904. Several days later, the news of the wanted man, Su, stepping into the foreign land was spread out by a true serene world. Once the countless cultivators who were chasing after Su Ming learned of it, the chase that had lasted until then came to an end. It did not matter whether it was the cultivators from Western Ring Nebula or the people who came from the other galaxies. Once they learned of the news, all of them felt slightly complicated emotions in their hearts. There were quite a number of them who came to the area beyond Western Ring Nebula's foreign land. As they looked at the region, they chose to leave in silence. It was precisely because they knew just how terrifying the foreign land was that a hint of admiration towards this cultivator called Su rose in their hearts at that moment, even if they were chasing after Su Ming for the bounty. He had made true Sacredine World, one of the 4 great true worlds, make such a big fuss and increase the bounty. He had even released the ferocious beasts in numerous cultivation planets, broken one seal after another, and even forced the 4 great true worlds to shut down the divinity incarceration rune. All the true guards from true Sacredine World had been mobilized, and a Radix planet had even left the region where the 4 great true worlds were stationed to keep a lookout over this person. All of this might sound simple, but over the countless years, besides the change in Black Ink Planet, Su was the only one who could truly do all of this. Not only had this person managed to survive in the endless pursuit, he had also killed countless pursuers. The difference between those in the initial stage of World Plane Realm and those in Heaven Cultivation Realm might not be great, but they were still in World Plane Realm. However, all those in the initial stage of World Plane Realm would definitely die if they ran into Su. Only those in the middle stage of World Plane Realm could make this person escape. But in the midst of this series of pursuers, even Heavenly Treasure Planet had crumbled because of him. Even Zhao family's progenitor had found it difficult to make him stay, and he had built up his fame time and again, becoming something that practically no one in Western Ring Nebula did not know about. This sort of person was worthy of respect, which was why most of the pursuers who came for the bounty would remain silent outside the foreign land. A few more days passed, and a sigh came from the starry sky outside the deathly silent land once more. An old man in ragged clothes walked out of the void in a swaying manner. He held a jug of wine in his hand, and after he walked out, he took a sip. As he looked at the calm land, a hint of admiration appeared on his face. It's no wonder why he was placed on the wanted list by the 4 great true worlds. It's no wonder why he could cause such a commotion in Western Ring Nebula. He has the guts to barge into the foreign lands for a chance of survival. If this child doesn't die, he will definitely become a prodigy in the future. The old man drank quietly. After some time, he shook his head, turned around, and left. Su, I will remember this name. If you can come out one day, I will treat you to a drink. Not long after the old man left, countless rocks appeared in another direction. The moment they appeared, they gathered together to form a giant stone golem. The stone golem's eyes were cold as it stared at the foreign land. It didn't say a word, and after a while, it let out a cold snort and disappeared. 7 days passed. A young man dressed in white arrived outside the quiet foreign land. The young man's expression was cold, but there was a hint of loneliness in his eyes. He stared at the foreign land and remained silent for a very long time. Su Ming, you can't die here because only I, Yi Wang, have the right to kill you. If you die here, then I won't have any opponents. This young man was Yi Wang. After standing there for a few hours, he turned around and left with a hint of loneliness. Time passed, and soon a month went by. If the 4 great true worlds had not released a new notice, then the matter regarding Su would have come to an end. It would have remained in the hearts of the people. Perhaps it would have continued to exist, or perhaps it would have disappeared into thin air several years later. However, when this notice was released, it caused an unprecedented commotion to stir up in Western Ring Nebula and the other 3 great galaxies. Even the commotion caused when the reward for the culpa treasure was offered was like a ravine between heaven and earth compared to this. It was simply impossible to compare. Countless people hesitated. In fact, even those who chose to leave shuddered when they heard the notice. Madness appeared in their eyes, and there was even a great struggle within them. The old monsters who had moved out for the Culpa treasure were also shocked by the four great true worlds notice. They could not believe it, and in fact, they could not imagine the reason why the four great true worlds would pay so much attention to this person called Mo Su. The degree of their attention even surpassed the change in Black Ink Planet in the past. They were not the only ones who were in disbelief. Even the true guards from the four great true worlds were shocked by the contents of the notice. In fact, they were dumbfounded. This was a 19th tier notice that came directly from the main camp. This sort of notice represented the joint decision of the 19 powerful true generals in the main camp. In fact, there was even the decree of the 2 true divinities in the main camp, or else even the 19 true generals would not be able to give such a reward. It could be said that this notice represented the decree of the main camp, the forces of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands, and in fact, it represented the will of the four great true progenitors from the four great true worlds, who were said to no longer care about the matters of the world. Those who enter Western Ring Nebula's foreign land and capture Mo Su alive will be pardoned of all their crimes and may return to the four great true worlds and obtain freedom. This was the content of the notice. World stones, cultivation planets, and Culpa treasures did not exist, but freedom was the strongest desire in the hearts of countless cultivators in the barren lands of divine essence, no matter what level of cultivation they possessed. For freedom, they could give up everything. Compared to freedom, all treasures were useless. This was the first time the four great true worlds had offered freedom as a reward to a person in the barren lands of divine essence. The commotion stirred up by this notice was difficult to describe with words. Even the old monsters in the four great galaxies who isolated themselves throughout the year were shocked by the contents of the notice. In fact, the hearts of the mighty cultivators who were in Lunar Culpa realm were also shaken by the notice. The desire for freedom was their dream. With this sort of reward, someone finally stepped into Western Ring Nebula's foreign land, becoming the second person to enter after Su Ming. After that, more and more people gradually stepped into the foreign land, risking their lives to fight for their freedom. The moon in the sky shone with a gentle fluorescent light. When it landed on the snow on the ground, it reflected a silver light. The endless snow drifting down from the sky sounded like a beautiful song under the moonlight as it reverberated in the air. The ground was covered in a thick layer of snow. The wind might not be strong, but it was very cold. Some of the trees in the area no longer had any leaves due to the cold winter. Only withered trees with many branches were left. There was a village in the distance. Under the moonlight, the lights from the lamps were covered by the paper windows, and they shone with a faint yellow light. This was a village with only a few hundred people. It gave off a sense of tranquility in the dark. Perhaps it was because of the cold of midwinter, but even some of the mutts in the houses were curled up and hiding in corners. Even if strangers came to the village, they did not want to bark. Occasionally, the cries of babies could be heard, but they were soon followed by the whispers of mothers who cared for them, causing the cries to slowly disappear. This was the scene Su Ming saw when he stepped into the foreign land. He circulated his cultivation base and was in a state where he was ready to bring out his strongest attack at any moment while he was being relocated. This tranquility, this gentleness, this ordinariness, the cries of babies, the whispers of mothers, and the village stunned Su Ming for a moment. He stood on the snow, and there was a lot of snow on his body. He looked at the village in the distance. The tranquility of this place made it hard for him to believe that this was the foreign land. This was not a place filled with danger, where almost all those who stepped in would die, and where very few people could leave alive. In fact, even if they did manage to leave, they would definitely not talk about what happened to them. This was clearly a peaceful place that was like paradise. In fact, when Su Ming spread his divine sense outwards, he did not sense any signs of danger in the area. Neither did he sense any ripples of power. All of these things forced Su Ming to believe that there were no cultivators in this place, and neither were there any dangers. This was just a normal village. How could this be? Su Ming mumbled. There was a huge difference between this place and the foreign land he had imagined. In truth, even if he ran into a land filled with endless dangers and had an endless amount of ferocious beasts attacking him, he would not be as perplexed as he was at that moment. Instead, this tranquil ordinariness made him feel as if he was not cold, but cold. Not only did his wariness not decrease, it became even stronger. He looked at his surroundings, and eventually, when his gaze landed on the village once again, he slowly sat down cross-legged. He did not move forward, but instead looked at it quietly. There was a big dried-up tree beside him. Foreign land. In silence, Su Ming grabbed a handful of snow on the ground and watched as the snow absorbed the warmth from his hand and gradually melted. He watched as the melted snow dripped down his palm and left behind small pits on the snow on the ground. Su Ming frowned. Could this be an illusion? A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Gradually, a bright moon appeared in his left eye, and a bright sun appeared in his right eye. During that instant, his heart turned into a star. The illusion of stars, sun, and moon was an illusion divine ability Su Ming had come to understand on his own. Even those with higher levels of cultivation than him would have their souls seen through by him. At that moment, Su Ming circulated the illusion with all his might and looked towards the village in the distance. However, no matter how he cast the illusion, not a single change could be seen in his eyes. The village was still the village, and snow was still falling from the sky. Everything was real, and it made Su Ming's breathing quicken slightly. Something's wrong. It's impossible for the foreign land to be like this. Su Ming swiftly closed his eyes. Once he covered the sun and moon, he circulated his cultivation base, and, after a moment, his eyes flew open. A strange light shone in them, and he looked towards the village once again. It was still the same. Su Ming fell silent. He felt that the area around him was filled with strangeness, but he did not choose to leave. Instead, he chose to remain cautious and not move. When the sky was no longer dark and sunlight shone on the ground, a new day arrived. He continued looking at the village in the distance. Time passed. Days passed by. Su Ming sat there for half a month, and he did not find a single flaw in the village. He had investigated practically all the hundreds of people in the village with his divine sense, and all of them were mortals. When night fell half a month later, Su Ming's expression suddenly changed as he sat there. He turned his head around and looked into the distance before averting his gaze. When midnight arrived, the sounds of horse hooves could be heard from the distance. Snow flew into the air and scattered everywhere. When laughter traveled into the air, Su Ming saw a group of nearly 100 people, which he had noticed several hours ago. These people all had fierce and ruthless expressions on their faces. As they laughed, they charged towards the village. Some of them even brought out scimitars and battle axes. By the looks of it, it was clear that they were about to carry out a massacre and robbery. There's one more chapter. I'm not going to post it at midnight. I'm writing it now, and I'll post it once I'm done. To be continued. If you like this work, please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.